Sometimes people are born into this world whose abilities go beyond human limits. Their skills have absolute value, but this is not always a reason for pride. But when one of the orcs was tested, it turned out, rage flared up in his status, and he was about to launch an attack. To withstand, the team had to fight back, and moreover, the orc had another ability. Healing magic.
After meeting Tamiko, a magical creature.
Not always a reason for pride. But when one of the orcs was tested, it turned out, rage flared up in his status, and he was about to launch an attack. To withstand, the team had to fight back, and moreover, the orc had another ability. Healing magic. The girl and the whole team went crazy from the victory and asked if this promotion to SS rank would make them known nobles. Azel, lowering his head, assured her that everything would be fine, then, without even looking at him, turned to Nigris, their guide, and told him to leave the team. Nigris was shocked by this sudden statement and asked if he was joking. Right. He couldn't believe what he heard because everything had been going great until then. He always helped his team. The girl behind him laughed and said he was a loser, not a joke. Didn't he realize that she called him a pathetic evaluator who doesn't even know how to fight? Now they were mocking him, not to be a burden in the S-rank group, and he should at least understand that her laughter brought him to tears. Turned out she never considered him part of their team, like everyone else. Nigris turned to his friend and asked if he always supported them with his evaluation. And Azel cast a condescending look at him and said they didn't need his useless skill. When he left, they would find someone with a useful ability. He was already exhausted by all this and wanted to put an end to it as soon as possible. Nigris burst out screaming. He couldn't understand why his comrades suddenly turned away. He never let them down and they didn't say a word to him. He shouted that besides evaluation, he also used healing magic in battles, but Hazel didn't let him finish and sharply threw, "Shut up." He could no longer listen to him and just waited for him to leave. Azel said he had never used him before. This of course affected him. He pondered the situation and suddenly remembered that it was true. His healing skill had not yet been needed, but this does not diminish the fact that the evaluation skill was no less important in fighting monsters. It significantly eased the task. But Azel stubbornly refused to admit it. He insisted they were so strong that they never got injured, and also insisted he didn't remember a single case when his healing was needed. It was painful to hear this, especially when such words came from his childhood friend. Although he had cared for Azel for 3 years, this statement sounded like humiliation and a cruel insult, as if Nigris had been considered useless for the team from the very beginning, and all the years of their friendship were simply written off as worthless. He remembered how he met Azel in the shelter and how they instantly became friends, swearing together to go on adventures. He worked hard to become stronger and hone his skills in assessing and treating so as not to fall behind. And now he felt ashamed. He believed they were friends who fought together and stood up for each other. But arguing with them was pointless, so he simply said he understood. They declared it the final decision and probably made it long ago. Nigris also did not intend to stay on the team where he did not belong, where no one needed him, and where they considered him superfluous. He looked at his childhood friend with eyes full of rage and declared that he would do as he pleased. After that, I turned away, and Azel only grimaced and, slyly smiling, called him useless. It would be much easier without him. As soon as Nigris left, 3 boys burst out with joy. They said, "Great, now that he's gone, they will quickly get the SS rank." And then Nigris returned to the place where adventurers take quests. There were few people there, so he didn't have to wait long in line. He approached the girl and handed her the papers. She quickly glanced through them and noted, apparently, he was expelled from the Silver Wings. Nigris forced a weak smile and confirmed. The girl looked at the documents once more, placed them on the table, and said that in that case his S rank would be lowered to the lowest, so now he only had a simple task left to gather medicinal herbs. Nigris looked depressed and thought that, as he suspected, Azel was spreading all sorts of rumors against him. It turned out that Azel was not satisfied with just kicking his childhood friend out of the team. He decided to finish him off with words, as if he was incapable of anything, so that no one would want to take Nigris into the team. Nigris had already understood everything and believed that it would be extremely difficult for him to find at least some group, and money was needed, so there was no choice. He had to agree to this task. The girl handed him a letter with a request and said that the place was the northern forest of the capital. Nigris thanked her, and without wasting time, rushed there to complete the task. He quickly got there and immediately started gathering herbs. It didn't take much time because he had already collected and packed enough. He quietly muttered to himself that someone needed such a thing, although he really didn't want to do it alone. But he had little money, there was no other choice. When he gathered everything and put it in the right place, he set off back. But suddenly he noticed a man who hurriedly rushed past as if fleeing from someone, terribly frightened. At the same time, he did not even look at Nigris, which made Nigris wonder, could he have been a merchant? The man was all sweaty, so Negris asked himself if something had happened to him and, filled with anxiety, decided to find out what had happened. He rushed to the place where the merchant was fleeing. Negris spotted the overturned carta sign that some trouble had occurred. It flashed through his mind. The merchant might have been involved in everything and fled out of fear of taking responsibility, or he was simply a tackadand, now he was terrified. Without wasting time, he rushed to the cart, approached, and saw that bandits had indeed pounced on him. Then it occurred to him, did the cart owner himself run away after that? When he looked into the overturned cart, he saw an injured girl inside. She was wounded and unconscious, probably after a blow during the accident. He did not waste a second to rush to her, asked what was wrong, and then noticed a seal on her hand. And immediately he thought, this is the mark of a slave contract. But as soon as this became clear, the magic of the bond worked across the distance to its owner. It seemed the blow during the accident still did not knock her out of consciousness. Negris could not bring himself to leave her there. So he put his healing magic into action. After some time, the girl fully recovered and finally opened her eyes. Negris shouted, "Here it is, now everything is fine." The girl, stunned, got up with surprise and looked at her hands, whispering, "Could it be that it no longer hurts?" Negris calmed her. "Calm down, everything is already fine." She looked at him intently, still undecided whether she could trust him. Meanwhile, Negris found no peace. Was there a curse lurking here? Maybe another one not related to the Arabic contract? Why was this child destined to live in sealed magic, and what does her SS swordsman rank mean? Every one of her swordswomen skills, whether magic or just masterly impressed and brought her achievements to the surface, but one thought did not leave Negris's mind. Maybe this curse was necessary to restrain her potential. Who cast it and why? He carefully pictured the answers, because the girl herself knew almost nothing about it. She turned to him and asked if he had healed her. Obviously, she still did not believe that such a thing could happen to Heron, that someone would really help, so she looked extremely surprised, and Negris confirmed. Yes, he knows how to use healing magic, so he healed her just as he removed the slave seal from her right hand. The girl looked at her right hand and exclaimed that this could not be real. Is this all a dream? Negris thought that she had already suffered too much, and he felt sorry for her. Now she had no one left of in someone like him. And he asked the girl what her name was.
Completely alone.
So he healed her just as he removed the slave seal. He introduced himself as Negris, a healer who can assess condition. He used his ability to evaluate to check her condition and saw something terrible. She was cursed. Fels panicked and asked what the curse was about, but it turned out she herself knew nothing about it. Negris clarified whether there were any marks or spots on her body. Probably the curse was hidden there. Fels looked at him with her big round eyes and said that since birth she had a mark on her ankle, but she had no idea it was a curse. Negris instantly understood this was a problem. If the cursed one herself did not know, then there was some reason. So he told his friends that he would remove her curse and asked to see her leg. Fels was embarrassed and asked what she meant, but still did as requested. However, everything was confused inside her, and fear played a role. It was clear that almost no one cared about her, so she remained trusting. Negris reached out to her leg and wondered if this was really it. Everything looked a bit strange. On Fels's ankle there really was a cursy small black spot of a bizarre shape, somewhat resembling a mouse or a rat. Removing it turned out to be easy, and within a few seconds, Negris declared that he had successfully removed it. Fels looked at him in surprise and began examining the ankle where there was a black spot. She couldn't believe her eyes. There was nothing there anymore. Negris stood up, calmed her down, assuring her that the curse had not touched the body and there would be no strange sensations, then asked her to try magic as a test. When she heard this, Fels flinched slightly and admitted she had never used magic before, but understanding it outside of healing turned out not to be so difficult. He waved his hand toward the neighboring tree and ordered her to simply reach out her hand to it. Fels obeyed, stood nearby, listened attentively, and he placed his hand on her back and quietly guided her. Direct your feelings and let them go. Fels did everything exactly as she was ordered, and her explosion turned out to be incredibly powerful. It seemed as if a mighty hurricane had swept through here and uprooted an entire row of trees. Negris was completely stunned by that unexpected surge of power from a child who had never used magic before. He thought, what an incredible force this is. Definitely not the level of a small child. Fels herself was frightened by her abilities and asked in a trembling voice if it was magic. Shocked, Negris replied, yes, but of a completely different scale, and as soon as he looked at Fels, his surprise only grew. She had noticeably changed and no longer resembled a child. It seemed everything revolved around that seal. As soon as it was taken off, Fels immediately became the age she was supposed to be, but it seems she didn't even notice herself. She was insanely happy and exclaimed that she used magic for the first time, and all thanks to him. Negris didn't pay much attention to her words. He decided that she had really grown up and, unable to resist, asked if she was growing so fast.
Returning to the present moment, he offers to help her in the kitchen. Karen protests. She says he is probably tired, but he insists saying he wants to cook together with her. A warm
Hearing this, Nigris understood and replied that it was logical. Her body must grow to withstand magic. At that moment, Felicia's stomach growled loudly. It seemed she hadn't eaten anything for a long time. Fels blushed and, embarrassed, grabbed her stomach. Negris silently understood everything and suggested first to fix her clothes, and then look for food. They decided not to waste time and set off on the road. Meanwhile, the Silver Wings team was cornered. Several wolves closed the ring, and they barely held the defense. Azala was bursting with rage from this failure, and one of the dark-haired comrades approached him and asked if he was not getting tired too quickly today. Probably it's all because of Negris. He was disgracefully expelled and called a nobody, but no one intended to admit it aloud. This guy bravely stepped forward with a shield and covered the rest of the team from the wolf attack. The girl nearby whispered, trembling, that it was extremely dangerous and the wolves could attack at any moment. Azel asked in surprise why the wolves were not attacking. He himself was badly wounded and hardly able to defend himself. He asked the boy about their condition, but before he could inquire further, the wolves attacked them all at once. It seemed that no one would survive, and even if someone did survive, their career as an adventurer would be over. Finally, Negresses and Fels reached a small diner. Their order was already waiting, but Fels couldn't start eating. She seemed enchanted by the beauty of the dishes. She was seeing such food for the first time, her eyes burning with delight. She really wanted to start, but couldn't bring herself to do it. This slightly embarrassed Negresses. He couldn't help but notice how she looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. As soon as they entered the room, she immediately sat on the floor. Her behavior clearly showed slave upbringing. He began urging her to eat faster, warning that everything would get cold if she didn't hurry, and Fels instantly agreed and immediately started eating. Tasting a small piece, she exclaimed, "What a delicious treat." Negresses was glad to hear this and reassured her that everything was fine. Fels impatiently began devouring the tasty food, while Negresses watched her and thought about how lucky he was to protect her smile. It seemed her strength, which others considered useless, deeply touched him, especially considering how cruelly he was treated in the previous group, and above all Azel, his childhood friend. Fels turned to him and sincerely thanked him for the help, saying that for the first time in her life she felt so good and was incredibly grateful to him. Negresses was filled with joy upon hearing these words. He realized he had never heard anything like that from his former comrades. He was embarrassed, politely declined her offer, and sincerely thanked her. Fels froze in surprise. No one had ever thanked her before. She couldn't understand why she was being thanked. It seemed to her that she had done nothing worthy of gratitude. She looked at him in surprise and asked why exactly she was being thanked and how she could repay him. And he said that he did not expect thanks for the help, and instead decided to tell a short story from his life. He confessed, in childhood, his parents took on a dangerous mission and never returned. A monster killed them and he constantly blamed himself for not being there and not saving them with his magic, and this burden did not leave him. He felt a call of the heart to help everyone in need, regardless of any circumstances. He told about his previous refusals and wondered why Fels should listen to him at all, but surprisingly Fels broke into a smile and exclaimed, "What an incredible idea." She grabbed his hand and began praising with enthusiasm. He overcame difficulties and tries to protect others from suffering. She was truly impressed by his worldview. Negris tried to calm the girl and assured her that he had something important for her. Fels, filled with joy, impatiently asked what exactly, and then sat down on the chair again. Negris inquired if she was an elf and where she was from. The girl's smile instantly faded as soon as he repeated his question where she was from. She could not remember her roots. She was sold as a child, and only the life in captivity remained in her memory. And Negris scratched his head and realized, this is trouble, she had nowhere to go. Fel lowered her head and sadly confirmed this, then with anxiety and concern on her face, looked intently at Negris, silently showing that she wanted to go with him. Negris then explained that she had two options, raising two fingers. Fels listened attentively while Negris became serious. He said that the first option was for her to part ways with him and live independently. Fels clearly did not want this option. She did not want to be alone and desperately reached out to stay with her savior. Ultimately, she did not care where they would go, as long as they were together, so then she anxiously asked about the other option. The dark-skinned woman answered that the second option was to set out on adventures together. He invited her not only because of her powerful magic. He would be glad if she decided to go with him, but she had the right to decide for herself. But before he could finish speaking, Fels interrupted him again. Grabbed his hand and asked, "Isn't it obvious?" Negris did not even expect such a reaction from the girl. He looked at her. She smiled in response. When she said she would go with him, Negris felt great relief. He did not want to be alone and was glad she agreed. He exhaled with relief and asked her to take care of him. Thus their joint adventure began. They sat down to eat again and silently savored the delicious dish. and as soon as they finished drinking, they did not waste time and immediately got to work, deciding to act together and support each other. The first thing they decided to do was to register with the Adventurers Guild. Everything went smoothly, and quickly, they were immediately told that they were now on the lists. Both of them were assigned rank D, and the guild entrusted them with several simple tasks. They hoped to handle everything, so they gladly agreed they wanted to grow and take on new interesting challenges after registration. Standing in the doorway of their new place, they decided to look once more at the tasks and locations they needed to go to. Negris was twisting a small piece of paper with all the markings in his hands, or maybe it was a map marking the necessary points, and agreed to get to work immediately, not wasting time. Fels thought it was a great idea. She did not object and was also glad to start a new life and job. In a good mood, they set off to complete the tasks. They quickly reached the great green forest and finished the task even faster. For Nigris it was usual, and for Fels, who watched everything carefully because it was new to her, a pleasant surprise. On their first attempt, they were allowed to gather herbs, and that very day he accidentally came across Fels. Without wasting time, he quickly collected all the necessary herbs, packed them, and Nigris stood up, exclaiming that it was a wonderful addition to his herb collection. Fels glanced at him with a radiant smile, praised his efforts, and called him Master Ingris, to which Ingris responded that the task was completed time to practice fencing on monsters. Hearing this, Fels immediately perked up interesting and new. They squeezed into the bushes near a small green clearing and watched the monsters living there. Just a moment ago they were in the endless green forest, but already in the territory of the red wolves. Negris again used his evaluation magic on the neighboring wolf to make sure he could handle it. A small system window popped up in front of them with all the information about this red wolf. Name: red wolf, tribe animal. Skill: small size, medium strength and magic, high agility, and 0 loyalty. In a state of alert, the wolf relies on smell to sense someone's approach. This monster did not scare Negrisand. He confidently stated that they would probably start with it. Fels was already a little scared. She had never done this before, and she was terribly frightened by it all. With fear in her eyes, she looked at the red wolf and admitted that she considered him strong. He cheerfully stood up, slipped out of their hiding place, and ordered Fels to watch while he prepared, probably wanting to calm her down and show that the monster was not as scary as it seemed. Fels also jumped up, worried about his safety and not wanting to be left alone. Negris approached the monster and froze a few meters away, calmly examining it, and the red wolf got angry. Noticing it seemed Negris deliberately did not attack first, waiting for the monster to sense him. In a few seconds the monster lunged at him with huge sharp fangs. Nigris was neither scared nor surprised. It was exactly what he needed, as if he had foreseen everything. He easily bypassed the monster and ended up on its side. Everything happened so fast that the red wolf did not have time to react. Negris, with one quick movement of his hand, struck the wolf on the neck and easily stunned it calmly and precisely, as if he had done it more than once. He returned to Fels and asked if she remembered the moves. He did all this especially for her, to prove it's not as scary as it seems. Fels was delighted by what she saw. Her fear was blown away by the wind. And now she could think only about how quickly and precisely Nigris acted. She exclaimed excitedly that it was incredible and asked if he was a skilled fighter. This confused Negris. No one had ever praised or noticed his abilities before. He immediately denied it and said that he was actually stronger in healing magic and logistics. Healers are always the first targets, so they need to be able to stand up for themselves. And in the previous team, he was often ordered to stay out of the way, so he hardly ever had to fight. He assured Fels, with her talent in swordsmanship, dealing with a dozen red wolves is a trifle, so there is no need to worry too much, as he will definitely use his healing magic to protect her. Fels instantly gathered herself, prepared for battle, and said everything was fine, but her excitement faded as soon as they encountered several red wolves. She became a little scared. Negris had previously fought only one wolf, but now there were several before her. It was too late to retreat, and Fels did not want to let Negris down. Clutching a huge black sword in her hands, she initially felt uncertain and withdrawn. The red wolves surrounded her and were ready to pounce, but they were not as fierce and rabid as the wolf Negris had fought before, so they hesitated for a few seconds before attacking. It was then that Fels showed her skill. With one sword strike, she knocked down all the red wolves at once. Although she held the weapon uncertainly, this surprised her herself. But she handled it excellently, and now she was no longer uncertain, restrained, or modest. Fear disappeared, replaced by confidence. It was clear that she liked the fight and she was fully focused. Negris was simply stunned by what he saw. Although he had seen her magic before, this time the amazement was even stronger every time Fels demonstrated her skills. He could not take his eyes off her. Her talent seemed boundless, and Negris believed this was due to her heightened senses, as she did not rely on physical enhancements. With such abilities, she could easily become the best magical swordswoman in the world, and he immediately appreciated all her talents and skills. Although Fels was nervous before the battle, everything turned out remarkably well. In a few seconds, she defeated the pack of red wolves, though it exhausted Hirsch was all sweaty and gasping, but she couldn't hide her satisfaction and eagerly awaited Negris's praise, because for her, it meant more than any reward. When Fels looked at the motionless red wolves, she finally lowered her weapon and slowly began to regain consciousness. Once modest and shy, Fels sighed wearily, but with pleasant relief she had defeated them alone. The first great victory brought her immense joy. She glanced at Negris, who stood nearby and saw everything, and as if nervous, said she had managed, awaiting his reaction or perhaps praise. Negris, who did not expect her to handle it so quickly and powerfully, praised her and acknowledged the work done, and Fels blossomed from his words. For her, it was proof of success. But Negris noticed a small wound on her arm, probably from the fight with the red wolves. Although it did not look serious, he still wanted to help. He approached, carefully took her injured arm, asked if it hurt, and without waiting for an answer, immediately applied his healing magic. Fels watched every movement with unbearable interest, could not take her eyes off, examined the healed arm and felt a surge of strength. Negris explained that the healing simultaneously improves physical condition, and then decided to tell her everything. He said that people subconsciously usually use only up to 80 of their abilities, but if you push yourself to the limit, the body is forced to work harder to recover and surpass these limits, and this discovery stunned Fels. She said enthusiastically what a powerful thing it was, and Negris was a little embarrassed. He said aloud that maybe she was really right. He was not used to praise. He was always told that he was good for nothing, and that his magic was useless to anyone. But despite everything, he decided not to get stuck in the past, and instead focused on what he had never seen before: other healers. Quickly dealing with the adventurers, they stormed the building and immediately came across the same girl. They handed her everything needed for the task, including herbs and the fangs of the red wolf, which they had killed during training. Seeing the fangs, the girl was surprised and frightened and asked where they got them. After a brief conversation, she accepted the completed task and thanked them, and satisfied, they decided it was time to move on. They didn't even suspect that they had already become the subject of gossip in the city, especially for the malicious tongues. Exiled not only kicked Negris out of the group, but also spread rumors about his worthlessness. When they walked away, nearby two guys were whispering something. The taller one insisted that only S-rank hunters could catch the red wolf and hinted that they knew someone like that among them. The shorter one added that Negris had just been kicked out of a similar team, and supposedly no one there felt sorry for him. Negris heard, but pretended nothing happened and confidently headed for the exit. As they passed a table near the door, two men noticed her and shouted, praising her beauty and wondering why she was hanging out with someone like Negris. One even insulted him, calling him a loser. Negris swallowed the pain, gathered himself and left the guild. They silently walked through the city streets, but the silence suddenly Crackedge couldn't hold back and exploded with anger. She did not understand why they spoke so nastily about him, although they barely knew him. Negris, as always, tried to calm her down and advised to let it go. He knew that stirring up a quarrel would only ruin everything, especially since he himself had probably seen or experienced such things before and no longer wanted to conflict with Exiled. Fels agreed but did not know what exactly to say, and the whole story angered her because people insulted him only because of rumors, so she gathered herself and asked how they had the audacity when he was the one who saved her life, as it seemed to her that their hurtful words struck her harder than him. Negris looked at her and immediately felt a pleasant embarrassment. She cared so deeply about him. He decided to change the subject and suggested going to grab a bite. Fels was about to answer when suddenly a man rushed towards them. On the street, everyone instinctively stepped aside and looked at him with horror, and someone even shouted that he was a thief. This guy was flying at full speed and saw no one in his way, just wanted to break free from whoever was chasing him. The bag pressed under his armpit, probably full of money or some valuables. And Negris and Fels froze, looking at him in complete astonishment. Negris whispered, "Is he really a thief?" It so happened that their paths crossed with this thief, and before they could recover, he was almost right in front of them. Probably realizing that they would not back down, he pulled out a knife and ordered them to step aside. Maybe he did not want to hurt them, just scare and run away, but Fels was not going to give in. She stepped forward without fear, and with firm determination. The sight of the knife did not scare her at all. With a lightning-fast move, she grabbed the hand with the knife and with a jerk threw him to the ground. The man was completely stunned and could not even fight back. He looked up at Fels embarrassedly and asked why she was so strong. Fels gave him a threatening look, showing without words that she was not to be trifled with, then shifted her gaze to Negris and asked intently if he was wounded. Although she could endure it herself, she still sincerely worried about him. Negris looked even more stunned than the other one and assured her that everything was fine. After that, there was a brief pause. He did not know what to say to her. Finally, he thanked her for the help and said that she saved not only him but the whole city. Behind him, a crowd had already gathered full of gratitude towards her, and as soon as the girl heard this from him, her face lit up with joy. She was sincerely happy because these words came from him. Negris looked at Fels, who was glowing with happiness, and thought, although she looks grown-up, she still has a child's heart. It seemed funny to him, but the next moment the guards appeared. Turned out they had been chasing the thief all along and finally caught him. Maybe that man was once an adventurer, but circumstances forced him to give it up. The guards called out to Fels and Negris, asking where the thief was. Without any hesitation, the man grabbed the thief, and Eglis pulled Fels to herself and threw her to the guards. It was she who had caught him. While he struggled and tried to break free, it seemed as if he desperately wanted everyone around to recognize him. After all, the accomplices were stalling and making efforts. After all, Fels could have been harmed by this thief. One man thanked her, 2 others praised her courage. And Fels, confused and frightened by all these people, quickly hid behind Negris, especially since Negris seemed somewhat familiar to her. It was the first time she had seen him in her life. Fortunately, Negris did not intervene and allowed her to hide, although he looked at her questioningly and worriedly. The thief continued to struggle, trying to break free from the guard's firm grip, but he couldn't. The man holding him squeezed his hand even tighter and roughly snarled in order not to move. It was then that Negris noticed the thief's left arm was bandaged as if he had just been injured, and curiosity flared. The thief begged to be released, insisting he had to feed his daughter, but none of the guards were swayed, perhaps deciding it was a lie. And they couldn't let him go. He planned to steal, and it seemed he was almost successful. Negris, bound to his hand, decided to use appraisal magic hand. As always, a small window with all the information about the thief flashed before him. Looking at the stats, he turned to him and sharply asked if his arm was paralyzed. The thief asked in shock where he had learned all this. Even the doctor said he would never recover. But before the thief could say more, monsters attacked them in the forest and forced him to steal, and Negris interrupted him. In fact, he did not want to hear this whole story. He wanted to make the thief happy by promising that he could heal him. Without waiting for an answer, Negris approached the thief. One of the guards asked what he was doing, and Negris dryly said he was trying to heal him. He asked the guards to step back a little. Meanwhile, Fels, the thief's faithful companion, anxiously watched her master, but Negris's attention was fixed on the thief's hand. When he got closer, he immediately exposed it to closely examine the condition and begin treatment. Negris immediately realized the matter. The muscles in the thief's hand were completely torn. He knew he had to try to heal it. Negris also noticed the wounds from hard work had gotten even worse. The thief could no longer seek adventuresso he took to stealing. Negris even felt sorry for him. He could no longer earn a living properly, and his daughter needed food, so the man went to extremes. Negris believed he had to atone for his sins and start over for the sake of his daughter. When he used healing magic, the thief's hand was restored in minutes. The gathered people looked at the healed hand with surprise, and the guard was stunned just like Negris himself. Unlike the guard, Negris's partner was delighted and truly satisfied with what she saw. She never doubted for a moment that he would succeed. Everyone around was frozen with amazement. One believed that Negris had really succeeded. Here, many had only heard good things about him from Exiled, so everyone felt his magic. The guards standing next to this thief, already preparing to take him away, were especially impressed. The thief, feigning genuine surprise, began examining his previously wounded hand. He clenched and twisted it from side to side. He could not believe his eyes insisted it no longer hurt and there was no wound. Negris silently watched his reaction, but it was clear. He was bursting with joy that he had helped, because despite how he was treated, it was important for him to save people. The man cried with happiness and said he would become an adventurer. Agin could not believe he would live as before once more. Negris gladly agreed and said that because of his height, it was better for him to use a bow rather than a sword, and the men looked at him in surprise and asked how he knew that.
From behind him, the gym owner finally exploded. "Director Cha, are you seriously going to continue? If every time you come here you maim my fighters, I can no longer pretend I—"
The man was incredibly grateful to Negris, fell to his knees and bowed, pressing his forehead to the ground. He sincerely thanked him and swore never to forget this act of kindness. Then, eager with curiosity, asked his rescuer what his name was. 2 guards who saw this were stunned. The senior admitted he had never seen such incredible magic, while the junior, who seemed to know Negris, dismissed all rumors about him as complete lies. It seemed the opinion about Negris was about to change. People approached, called him a master, and praised his amazing magic, their eyes burning with admiration and awe. Negris calmly explained that his spell relies on the emotions he feels toward the person. The stronger the emotions, the more effective the spell. Although they were confused, the skillful abilities impressed, and they believed. The power of feelings is truly incredible. Meanwhile, the man who tried to steal something came to his senses and thanked Negris again, admitting he owed him. The police noted that no thanks were needed, just wanted to help without expecting anything in return. The man gave no answer, but told something interesting. He said that healers were disappearing in the thickets of Royal Haven, and this made him wary. After a warm farewell, everyone went their own way. While Fels and Nigris were walking through the city streets, Fels, a former slave, admitted that she knew almost nothing about the slums and asked what kind of place it was and why it was so dangerous. Nigris explained that people don't go there, often weaker adventurers seeking experience and lacking money take jobs there, and the slums live separately from the three main powers, a distinct, isolated world in the heart of the city. At these words, Fels looked at him with surprise. She had no idea such a place existed. When asked about the other three forces, Negris explained, the country is ruled by three factions: the kingdom, the church, and the adventurers guild, but the Netri did not belong to any of them. Yet they were strong enough to keep the government on edge, only lacking money, so they had to go there. And the Netri, as always decisive, saw this as a great opportunity. There you can do whatever you want. Meanwhile, the Silver Wings somehow whirled out of the battle, with the Red Woolvesties survived, but were terribly battered and frightened. Hazel was furious to the point of madness and couldn't stop, kept swearing nonstop. The girl next to him grabbed his hand and tried to calm him down, but he still couldn't believe they lost to the Red Wolf. Hazel glanced to the right at the guy. It was clear he definitely held a grudge against him. The girl kept trying to bring him to his senses, calming him, asking him to be quiet, and reminding him that he himself had let his guard down. But Hazel didn't listen. He shouted at the newcomer and their team's guy flinched and seemed to be afraid of Hazel. The newcomer turned to him, eyes full of fear. Hazel decided to unleash all his anger on him and declared, the failure was only because of him. Hazel looked at the girl puzzled, not understanding what she meant, but when the words finally sank in, he admitted he had warned him to stay away from the road. This made Hazel even angrier. He instantly jumped up, grabbed a sword, shouted to the newcomer, shut up, and sharply cut his hand. Suddenly, a dark-haired boy jumped in to take control. He grabbed Azel from behind by the arm and said enough. But Azel was not going to listen. He ordered everyone to be silent and stubbornly refused to admit defeat by a low-rank monster. He was still shouting and threatening the newcomer, swearing to take everything from him and destroy him to the ground so that he would never return to his life again. The newcomer was so scared that he couldn't stand being on the team and ran away, and Hazel gritted his teeth in anger and declared he would run away because Hazel would report him to all the guilds. Suddenly it dawned on him, and he quieted down a bit. He said they would have to complete the task assigned by the nobility to avoid the wrath of Empress Florence, and if they succeeded, they would be generously paid and gain influence over the guilty. With a cunning plan in his head, he ordered everyone to head into the slums. Meanwhile, in the slums, Negris and Fels were already at the place. It turned out to be empty. A bunch of buildings lay in ruins, and the city looked neglected and lifeless. Fels was trembling with fear, as if she did not expect the slums to be like this, and asked if this was really the slums, because everything seemed abandoned. And Negris, feeling out of place himself, ignored her question and suggested looking for a place to spend the night. Suddenly, a group of men aggressively approached them. Without hesitation, Negris stepped forward to cover Fels. The man who seemed to be their leader recognized him, the very person Empress Florence wanted to see, and although they looked rough, they were the ones sent by the Empress. But it turned out they were actually completely different. No desire to fight or forcibly drag anyone with them, their leader led the group and ordered them to join because Lady Florence was waiting for them. At first, she was a little scared, but in a moment Fels focused, took a stance, and even reached for her sword. But Negris stopped her, which shocked the others. They looked at their master with curious eyes, and Fels explained that there were too many of them to handle together. He raised his hands in surrender, showed that they gave up, and allowed himself to be taken to Lady Florence. Without unnecessary words, they were led to Lady Florence. They reached the same unattractive building and stopped at the entrance. Lady Florence felt their presence and invited them inside. A man approached from behind and pushed them into the room. Both found themselves in a small room that resembled what was outside, and Lady Florence sat on a throne before them, accompanied by 4 men who looked like her servants. Lady Florence scrutinized them intently and, glancing at Negris, coldly cut off. He is a disgraced healer from the ranks. The tension in the air thickened as soon as a man approached her. He leaned in roughly and authoritatively, poked Negris with his finger, and boldly declared that he was known for his mediocrity.
He noted Jinbu's eyes were initially black, so there must be a reason for this change. When Ursel spoke, Klaus felt a jolt. If the guild master is so agitated, it means he has encountered something incredibly serious.
With mixed surprise and horror, they stared at Lady Florence. She threw a hostile, angry look at the man, reproaching him as if he could not see beyond his own nose. The man snapped, suddenly realized his mistake and got scared, began begging for forgiveness. Meanwhile, Negris noticed the chance and did not take his eyes off Lady Florence. He was curious who she really was, and he again launched his magic of evaluation. A small system window with her full characteristics appeared before his eyes. They said that Manassas' swords have magical properties. The letters D, C, and B denote dexterity, loyalty, and C respectively. After pondering, he decided that she has excellent traits and incredible strength. Interested in her condition, he checked and saw. Now she is vigilant, but her condition is truly miserable, a wounded soul and health problems. This intrigued me even more, he thought. Could it be that she has a wounded soul and health problems if nothing is visible from her appearance? But Lady Florence interrupted my thoughts. She gave him information about the thief in King's Landing, probably the same one who was recently treated at Miguel's. It turned out they knew a lot about him, and that was definitely not a good sign. Lady Florence said she would like to see him someday, but he did not waste time and immediately stated that he was looking for healers to cure my wounds. If they fail, he would simply get rid of them. Apparently, Lady Florence found this very amusing. She crossed her arms over her chest, barely smiled, and remarked that his answer was truly impressive. She praised him for his intelligence, but as soon as she spoke about the charlatans who previously pretended to be healers, profited from the poor, and essentially helped no one, her face immediately became serious. Lady Florence was openly disappointed in them, but still hoped for him more than for others. She had heard too much about his abilities. When Lady Florence and her companions looked at each other, it became clear. Fels was by no means thrilled about what was happening. She tensed and twitched inside, sharing the same fears as her master. Negris noticed the anxiety on Fels's face and immediately realized, if they failed, he would suffer too, but he believed he was different from other healers because he had the power to heal Lady Florence. Glancing at the determined Lady Florence, he immediately realized she was desperately tearing for an exit somewhere and ready for anything. As a healer, he approached and said he would stay and treat her. Lady Florence was initially surprised, but quickly pulled herself. Tojtharan promised to give him everything he desired. Then she hinted that she meant something slightly different. The guys understood Thyssen couldn't hold back. They shouted to the master not to risk his life for her treatment. Negris himself understood. It was a huge risk, but he believed in himself and knew he would manage. He gently stroked the worried Fels on the head, thanked her for her care, smiled, and assured her. Since he had already healed her when she needed it, Lady Florence would heal too because she also needed his help. Having seen everything, Lady Florence turned to Fels and remarked with surprise that she cared for the master even under such conditions. She even called her a very good slave. Nigrius did not like this. Frowning again, he corrected Lady Florencesh was not a slave, but his partner. Lady Florence crossed her arms over her chest and tilted her head slightly to the left as if to say, let him follow her. Fels could not relax at all. She was still worried about the master, wanted to say something to him, but could not find the strength to say what she really wanted, so she had to wait for him there. He entered the next room. Lady Florence had brought him here, and it already looked much cozier than the main hall. Lots of furniture, even houseplants. Without wasting time, Lady Florence sat on a small rug, turned her back to Negris, and slightly exposed her back, revealing a large black mark on her right shoulder. Negris twitched at this. He did not expect that at all. What the hell? Hearing his reaction, Lady Florence instantly pressed the wounded shoulder and sharply turned to him with wild disgust. Why can't you just write a list without balls? Negris hesitated for a moment and whispered that it was not so simple, but Lady Florence did not let him finish. She decided that he was incapable, flared up with rage, and started shouting, demanding that he either do it or at least honestly admit that he could not. But despite her outburst, Negris remained calm. He sat down evenly beside her and assured her that it would take time, but he could heal her. He tried again to touch the wounded shoulder, but Lady Florence looked at him angrily and sharply pushed his hand away, even shouting that he must not touch her. The black woman frowned a little and addressed Lady Florence, saying that he could heal her wound. Lady Florence was momentarily confused and blushed slightly. Then he touched her shoulder again and advised her to endure a little. Focusing, he began his mother's healing technique. It took longer than before and looked much more serious. Looking at her wounded back, he noticed scars all over her body, just not on the shoulders. She was so thin, and he realized she had it very hard. He hoped she would recover. Suddenly something shifted. A child's voice was heard calling for Mom. To his surprise, he saw little Florence, still a child, together with her mother. The mother turned to her daughter, smiled, and said it was time to go. Negris felt as if he was looking at her memories. Anything could have happened in the slums. He silently watched as her mother hugged little Florence on her lap. Florence looked up and asked why she could not do bad things. The mother answered with the same smile, explaining, bad deeds would bring reward, and good ones would make her much happier, so it was not worth doing bad. Lady Florence realized that this was exactly what her mother taught her before she died of illness. Surviving alone was incredibly hard, so she clenched the knife. At first, it was a horror for her. Her hands trembled, her eyes filled with tears, but there was no choice. Only she could take care of herself because no one else was left. So she did everything to survive, even killed and stole. At first, fear consumed her, but later she realized otherwise she would not survive. One day she came across a frightened boy with his mother. As soon as she looked at them, a familiar gaze covered her with a memory of her mother, who once hugged her tightly. This sight made her cry again. She longed for her mother. Mother always taught her to do good, promised that it would come back, and she no longer believed in such tales, but still decided to root those words in her memory. And she promised to do a good deed to save this place. She further thought that her whole life was just a continuous struggle. And the bruise on her shoulder, like a mirror, repeated the same pain as her mother's. After finishing the procedure, he lowered his hands, approached her, and announced, "Everything is over." Lady Florence immediately looked at her shoulder and prepared to look for the bruise, but to her great surprise, it was not there. She approached the nearby mirror, gazing at her reflection, and with delight saw everything had already healed. Lady Florence simply could not believe it. Negris smiled at her, assured her that she was completely healthy now, the illness had disappeared. Then he asked if she would allow him to live here. Lady Florentia reacted stunned to this request, and asked if that was all or if he would ask for more after all. He had saved her life. But Negris interrupted her and stated that he needed nothing. Lady Florentia could hardly believe it. She called out about Monathan why a healer. He replied that he did not need money, he just wanted to save people by healing them. Lady Florence lowered her gaze and quietly confessed that she also wanted to save the city. Negris did not command her to do good. Was her own mother a good woman who believed that good deeds always come back? Lady Florence looked at the healer in surprise and asked how he knew that. Negris replied that during treatment, he sometimes sees thoughts that people do not let go of, and he had seen this in her. Then Lady Florence asked again, did he really mean that he saw everything? Negris smiled and said that she had a very good mother and that she had grown up as an exact copy. He gently placed his hand on her head, stroked her hair, and confessed how much effort it took to acquire this place. Lady Florence blushed brightly, clenched her fist so hard that her teeth gritted, loudly told him to calm down and almost hit him. Negris, looking embarrassed at her fist, asked what had happened but managed to save the situation. He took her blow on defense and, looking at her with surprise, realized she was not aiming at his face and was not hitting with full force. It was her way of releasing embarrassment. Blushing, she asked if he thought she was a girl seeking comfort. Since he was a man, she could no longer continue the conversation. Displeased, pretending, she turned away from him and headed to the exit. Negris, not expecting such a turn, rushed after her and begged her to wait, but Lady Florence did not even think of stopping. The worried Fels was already waiting for him outside, and as soon as she saw her master appear, she rushed to him and asked if everything was all right. Negris assured her that he was fine and apologized for making her worry. Fels was wildly happy about his return, and looking him straight in the eyes, showed how glad she was without any hesitation. She assured him that she was confident he would overcome any difficulties. People rushed to Lady Florence and bombarded her with questions. Was it true that he had cured her? Lady Florence decided not to answer. She only ordered food to be prepared. Everyone watched her with surprise and asked again what had happened. Lady Florence blushed and ordered a place to be found for Mr. Negris to spend the night. No one could believe what they heard and asked again. Lady Florence, embarrassed, closed her eyes and listened as the man explained that one must trust their own ears. Lady Florence has now recovered. Lady Florence returned to the healer, thanked him, and sincerely offered any help if needed. Suddenly, a fairy appeared before Heron, happy that the lady was diverting attention from her master, and asked when Lady Florence had become so close to him, but Lady Florence did not answer. She only smiled. She suggested that both follow her. Lady Florence decided to show them the city, led them through empty streets, and they admired with delight everything they came across. Then she led them into a spacious house, which, unlike the others, was in excellent condition. She greeted them with a smile and asked them to feel at home. They thanked Lady Florence for providing them a place to stay. He assured her that he was not interested in her money, so he set about earning honestly. He charged people 1 coin each. One of the men approached him, the very one he had assessed earlier. That man was glowing with joy and thanked him, insisting that switching from a sword to a spear was a brilliant idea. Negris stood nearby and was also happy, smiling and saying that he was pleased to hear that. Finally, all his assessment skills truly came in handy as he had always dreamed. Then he communicated with people, advised and helped them with evaluations, and Lady Florence watched with great pleasure. Their city was finally flourishing after a long time. Every day people were becoming better. Everything around seemed filled with happiness, and this brought her great joy, because this was exactly what she longed for. Then Fels appeared and called her master. She showed the new clothes and asked confusedly if they suited her. When Negris saw her in the new outfit, he too was puzzled and asked where she got the dress. Fels replied that they were in the mansion, where Lady Florence had taken them, and the men standing in line for the appraiser noticed Felsend with open mouths looked at her beauty. Negris stood up and awkwardly muttered that the dress fits her perfectly, and Fels lit up with joy and thanked him. The residents of the slums threw a huge feast to celebrate a joyful day, miraculously successful. They ate their fill, had a great time, and finally everyone here was truly happy. These few days in the wilderness passed unnoticed, and now they had to go to the royal harbor to raise their rank. so without delay they decided to set off. Fels lagged a little behind Negris and noticed. They hadn't been to the harbor for a long time, and during these days they had grown closer and looked much happier than before. Fels returned to her mistress and confessed that she terribly wanted a hamburger for lunch. She couldn't get rid of thoughts about what it would taste like. During this time she had changed a lot. She was no longer so reserved and shy, so now she spoke to her mistress about her desires without any problems. Negris, of course, noticed this and was glad, reassured her that everything was fine, and then suggested freshening up before the trip to the guild. After that, they went to their usual place, where they usually ate. To their surprise, they heard shouting as if some quarrel. Curiosity was overwhelming, so they moved closer to the commotion. It turned out, someone was shouting in a language they did not understand. Negris pricked up his ears and wondered what was happening, and already a large crowd had gathered around. Everyone wanted to see what was going on and find the source of the noise. A man, clearly full of rage, slapped a girl from Nino on the cheek and loudly made it clear that he refused to work with her. Even after the blow, the girl stood firm and did not shed a tear, and his anger was felt in every word. The man sharply pointed to the exit, ordered her to leave, and declared that he could not even eat in her presence. He shouted at her for staring at him, as if what had already happened was not enough for her. Then he raised his fist again to hit her. She instinctively put her weapon in front of her to defend herself, but the blow did not happen. The man again pointed to the exit, ordered her to leave, and repeated that he could not even eat in her presence. Then he again pointed to the exit, ordered her to leave, and repeated that he could not even eat in her presence. Negris rushed to help her and intercepted the man's hand, not allowing him to hit her again. The man did not expect this at all. He froze in place and looked at Negris in confusion. The girl also froze in surprise. Negris looked sternly at the man and ordered him to stop. He grabbed his hand and decisively commanded him to cease. And the girl, still in shock and fear, raised a surprised look at Negris with wide-open eyes. The man turned around and recognized Negris. A sly smile flashed on his face. It turned out that this was the same bungler who was kicked out of the S-level team, and it seemed now he had found a new victim for bullying. When he recognized that it was Negris, he immediately aggressively jerked his hand back, and Negris was momentarily embarrassed by such a sharp turn. He did not expect such a reaction from him. The man instantly turned back to Negris, clenched his fist, and preparing to strike, asked threateningly how he dared to interfere. But Negris remained unshaken, composed, restrained, and calm. He quietly shifted to the right and easily avoided the blow. After someone quickly tripped the man, a crowd gathered. Everyone wanted to see the outcome and witnessed his fall. Many started talking and even laughed. It turned out they knew him. One of the dark-haired shouted, "What a spectacle," and the blonde next to him added, "He really fell hard." The one who fell was determined not to endure humiliation and to respond, but he was stopped by a woman with a sword ready to strike at any moment. She sternly warned, only over her dead body would he lay a hand on her master. It was clear she would not tolerate any insults or slander against him. The man looked at her in surprise, but quickly pulled himself together, stood up, and shouting at them, rushed away. It became clear that he could not handle all of them. But to avoid looking weak in front of others, he still decided to run away. Unfortunately, no one else cared anymore. Everyone was interested in only one thing: what would happen next. Ignoring everyone, Negris turned to Fels and sincerely thanked her. Fels nodded and said she was glad to hear that. Her help had been useful. Then he immediately approached the girl lying on the floor as if frozen and unable to get up after what had happened. Negris extended his hand and quietly asked if she was okay and if she needed help to get up. The girl shuddered. She did not expect anyone's hand, looked at him with fear and surprise, and asked why he was helping. For her, it was a real wonder, as if no one had ever extended a hand to her before. Negris honestly replied that he simply wanted to help, and the girl squinted even more at his outstretched palm. She got up by herself without his help. Maybe she was just embarrassed, but she could stand on her own. She said he hit her so hard, but pressing her cheek, she asked if it really didn't hurt anymore. There was no trace of a wound left on her cheek. Negris explained that he had already healed it, and did it so quickly that no one in the house even noticed. The girl continued to be amazed by this strange man and asked who he was. The healer introduced himself as Negris. Just then, Fels approached them, and Negris said that she was his partner, Fels. Alice thanked them for their help and immediately warned it was better not to get involved with her. It could bring trouble. Fels looked at her puzzled and asked why. She quietly replied that she was from Nino, a race considered mediocre and irresponsible. When people found out about this, they immediately judged her, and it cut her to the bone, although outwardly she tried not to show it. Hearing this, Fels got angry and exclaimed that it was unacceptable. Alice was stunned by his anger, and the strange pair made her look around in surprise. Negris approached her and said that Fels was right. Those who discriminate against her because of her race were to blame, and unlike everyone who considered Alice incompetent and irresponsible just because of her origin, Negris did not think so. He understood that people are all different and focused more on their strengths rather than their roots. Alice was initially confused and wanted to object, but quickly changed her mind. She smiled and agreed they were absolutely right. It seemed that the words of Negress and Fells encouraged her, and Alice herself began to feel much better and freer. She even added that they were just jealous of her magical abilities. Fells asked if she really had a talent for magic, and Alice looked surprised and excited. Alice, pleased with herself, confidently confirmed she really had a huge talent. It seemed she even liked talking about it, especially about her own magical abilities, as she had already said. Then Negress allowed himself to ask if he could see her perform magic, and Alice agreed without hesitation. She also wanted to demonstrate her skills. So, as always after that, Negress activated the evaluation skill, and a small window appeared before him with all the information about the girl. Her name was Alice Scarlet. She was a female Nino, 17 years old. She had not only magical powers, but was also skilled with a sword magic level D, fencing level SS, loyalty 0. Plus, she had a unique skill, Primal Lightning, which she discovered after being struck by lightning in childhood. This touched Negress and made him doubt whether her magic was really as powerful SS rank, like elite fencers. But her current rank was only S, and this confused him. Other abilities were at the lowest level. He also thought about her lightning skill. Was it a special ability or technique he had never seen? Swordsmen had their moves, but mages usually did not. Despite being kicked out of Azel's team, Negress still dreamed of gathering his own group where everyone supports and helps each other. Meanwhile, Alice watched him with interest and impatiently awaited his assessment of her abilities. Negress replied that her magical rank was indeed impressively high. Alice, who knew her capabilities well, only confirmed their suspicions. After all, she was a brilliant sorceress. After that, Negress asked if Alice was looking for a new team and if she might join them. Alice looked at him in surprise, then smiled and said that of course, she could also be looking for someone to join and rely on just like them. After a short conversation, they decided to train and test Alice's skills, so they went to an open place away from people in the Adventurers Guild. There they came across a small forest with a clearing, an ideal place for that. Alice, assured that she would show everything she was capable of, was burning with anticipation and really wanted to demonstrate her lightning magic. Negress stood right in front of her, ordered her to shoot directly at him, holding her magical staff in his hands, and waved it, signaling that they had started. She released a lightning bolt, directing all her magic straight at Negress. Every time her magic hit him, he instantly raised a protective barrier around himself or activated healing magic to avoid harm. He only wanted to test her power, but he was still surprised. Why didn't her magic match her status? Her strength was much weaker than the stats indicated, so he asked if she was using her full power. She replied that she was indeed using full power and that he was the only one who could withstand her strike, which could fell 3 trees. But Negress couldn't believe it. He sensed something was wrong. He told her that he had applied double healing. The girls stared at him in surprise and asked what double healing was. It turned out they had never heard of it and couldn't even imagine such a thing existed. That guy explained everything to them. He layered healing magic on top of the magic already active on his body, making him incredibly resistant to attacks, called his technique double healing. The girls were thrilled with him and kept saying he was simply incredible. Igloo said he had never used it before. Alice looked a bit puzzled and remarked, if he was also capable of evaluating, then he was definitely not an ordinary healer. The black woman approached and asked if she had any other magic besides lightning. Alice replied that lightning had been with her since birth and it was the most powerful magic in the world. The girl seemed very proud of this and always spoke about it enthusiastically, as if boasting. The negress did not argue, simply said that yes, she liked lightning, but something was off. It was not at her level at all, half as strong as it should have been. And he was already wondering why her power did not match her status when suddenly one of the girls called him and pulled him out of his thoughts. Alice called Negress and moved closer, but he was so lost in thought that he didn't notice. She was struck by the power of his magic and asked why his healing magic was so strong. Negress stepped closer, lowered himself to her level and said, whether he was strong or not, he had one certainty. Alice glanced at him and asked what exactly. Negress replied that if he used his magic to help others, then by healing her, he would definitely help himself as well. He summed it all up and said that expressing feelings through magic was really very important. Alice looked at him surprised and replied. She understood this importance. Then suddenly something clicked and Hirsch realized what he was talking about. And it became clear why her skills did not match her true power. She raised her magical staff and exclaimed, "That's exactly it, guys." Negress and Fells were stunned by her sudden burst of energy. Alice was usually a quiet girl. Alice said that magic exists to bring happiness to people, and her problem was precisely this lack of emotions. Negress and Fells looked at her surprised, remained silent, and obviously were considering what would happen next. Negress especially wanted to see what else she was capable of. Alice added that she used magic for those who believed in her. She released another lightning spell, and they became witnesses to a colossal surge of her magic. The sky was lit by a giant lightning bolt that struck a hidden spot behind the trees. This time her power not only matched her might, it surpassed it. She finally showed true strength, heeding Nigris's advice and proving that it was all really about feelings. Even Negers froze in shock. He inquired what had happened, as he certainly did not expect her lightning magic to be so strong. Fels was no less stunned and immediately noted Alice's strength. Despite her own surprise, she impressed them again, not expecting such a result herself, and was stunned by what was happening. She looked even more shocked than Nigris and Fels. Curiously, she asked if she could do this forever. Meanwhile, Nigris silently looked at the traces of her magic and wondered if they had accidentally destroyed half the forest. Suddenly something caught his eye from afar. His intuition immediately rang. Nothing good would come of it. He looked at Alice and sharply pointed forward, warning, "There is a dragon guardian's nest there." When Alice heard this, her face froze with fear. She asked if it was serious, but the question faded on its own as a dragon burst out of a dust cloud and was already rushing toward them. Nigris, who had encountered this creature before, knew about it firsthand. He said that together with the previous team he tried to kill it, and although the attempt failed, the dragon's rank rose from S to SS. So the guild cancelled the task. It was too dangerous, and since then no one else dared to challenge this creature. Nigris did not waste time and immediately used magic to scout the situation. On a small rectangular window flashed the dragon's name: Dragon Defender, SS Magical Power, S Agility, and 0 Loyalty. And Alice, stunned, whispered that she was seeing such a powerful lightning for the first time. She grabbed her sword and prepared to fight the dragon, calling Nigris to run while she held it back. At first Nigris did not respond, he just looked at the dragon. Finally he extended his hand and declared that he would try to calm it down. Apparently, he had some plan, and Alice could not believe her ears. After the previous team's failure, she doubted his abilities, asked what he would do differently this time because she saw no chances. She was very worried that they would not cope and no one would help them. Nigris said he would cover and support her, so now it was his turn to fight. But Nigris himself was already too determined. Hardly anyone or anything could shake his resolve. Fels was also steadfast and not going to give up. She would follow him to the very end, ready at any moment to lend a shoulder, stand beside her master. How could she leave him alone? Fels asked, while the palace was still recovering from their act and scolding his madness. She did not retreat and did not want to leave them alone. She promised to help as much as she could and asked to be careful not to get caught by her magic. After that, everyone focused and prepared for the attack. And the eagles looked determined and thought, who said a healer cannot be at the forefront? They had chances, they just needed to use them wisely. As soon as they were fully prepared to fight the dragon, it rushed at them and did not wait. It immediately attacked with flame. It opened its jaws, bared long sharp fangs, and unleashed a huge wave of fire at Alice and Nigris. Alice ordered Nigris to release a lightning discharge to counter the flame and protect them, and though a little scared, she fulfilled the request and raised her magic staff, successfully repelling the fire attack with lightning magic. Taking advantage of the dragon's temporary blindness, Nigris rushed into battle and swung his sword at the monster. But the dragon managed to dodge, and this was part of Alice's plan, to lure it to a specific spot so she could attack there. Taking advantage of the moment, Alice again released a lightning-fast magic and hit the dragon. Nigris praised her skills, but the dragon was unharmed. Nigris was not going to give up. He approached and mercilessly struck the belly. The dragon was stunned and did not have time to react. The sudden blow stunned him and played to Nigris's advantage. Suddenly, Nigris's expression became serious. He apologized to the dragon. He said there was no other way. They had to deliver the final, decisive blow. And as soon as the dragon fell on its back, defeated, Nigris's movements were restrained. Alice could not believe her eyes and cautiously stayed aside. Even when the fight was over, the dragon still frightened her, so she decided not to take risks. She asked if they were really the first to defeat it, because she could not fully understand what was happening. Nigris, his gaze fixed on the dragon and ignoring everyone else, approached the fallen creature and immediately grabbed its paw where an old wound had healed and left a slanting scar. Without explaining anything, he began to heal at Alice, stunned with horror, which was quite understandable. He had just almost killed them, asked what he was doing. Nigris calmly replied that he wanted to heal the dragon and send it back, because protecting the forest was the duty of the keeper of the forest palace. However, Alice still disagreed. Everyone had seen what the dragon was capable of, and she felt they would no longer be able to handle it. She was so frightened that she wanted to object to Nigris and say, maybe he was right. Fels interrupted. Approaching with admiration, he declared that Nigris was incredibly wise, always thinking about the future, not chasing instant gain, and more compassionate than anyone else, and this somewhat calmed Alice despite everything. She had already begun to trust Nigris, and while the girls discussed, Fels also cheered her up. Nigris had already finished healing the dragon, which no longer looked hostile. It immediately got up and examined its wounds. There were none, even the scars from old injuries had disappeared. Negris also got up and declared that he had healed his own old wounds, so the guardian dragon was filled with joy and gratitude for being saved. It was time to say goodbye. Fels and Negris accompanied it in flight, waving their hands, and it flew to its nest. Fels asked it to take care of itself. Negris apologized for everything that had happened, and when the dragon disappeared, Alice froze in shock and did not know how to react.
The conversation is interrupted by a voice calling his name. It is Aaron, the leader of the Holy Knights, who approaches Klaus with a worried look, asks if Karen is safe, and says that Tamara informed him about the situation.
To take care of itself, Negris apologized for everything that had happened, and when the dragon disappeared, Alice froze. Negris tensed a little when she approached and directly asked why he was expelled from the Silver Wings if he was so strong. At these words, he frowned, a painful topic, and the girl still looked intently at him, waiting for an answer. Fels was worried about him and saw that it was hard for him to talk about it. But eventually Negris realized there was nothing to hide, and although the story was unpleasant, he began to tell it to them. He was born in a distant village, and his parents died when he was still a child. There was no one to rely on. He had to work as a slave just to survive. But his life turned upside down when monsters attacked the village and left it in ruins. He found shelter, and there met Hazel, who, appreciating his outstanding skills, invited him to her team. But during his rise in the ranks of the Silver Wings, he began to be treated even worse and eventually was expelled, ending their cooperation. Fels described the whole story as a horror, and Alice froze with fear. She asked Negris how he managed to hold on through all that. Negris smiled and assured her that now everything was fine. This stunned Alice, and she asked again what was good about it. Negris laughed out loud and said that if she had seen him then, she would have beaten him to death. When all the affairs were completed, Negris announced that it was time to return home. They quickly grabbed their belongings and set off, eager to get home by evening. In the evening, Negris settled on the sofa by the window, immersed himself in a book. He hadn't felt such peace for a long time, and finally relaxed a little. But suddenly there was a knock at the door. He quickly pushed the book aside and went to open it. A powerful noble orders the S-rank party to kill Queen Florence and seize it. Full of confidence and zeal, Azel accepts the mission and assures the nobleman that he will handle it without problems. Whispered questions arose in the group. What does this mean, and what is the true purpose of this assassination mission? Despite suspicions about the magic book and the queen's role, Isle demands blind obedience. Meanwhile, in Florence, Queen Florence praises Negris. His leadership brought peace and growing strength. For a moment there was calm when Negris learned that a rebel was caught in the residential area. It turns out the captured rebel is Exiled, the leader of the S-rank party, resisting arrest. The party recognizes Negris. Once useless, now he commands respect and has authority among the city guard. Florence strikes Exiled with all her might, silencing his resistance and demonstrating her unwavering determination. Negris recognizes the attackers as former comrades, but immediately makes it clear they are no longer allies. Recognizing the uninvited guests, Negris immediately realized these Silver Wings are not such a threat to respond to right now. Florence, acknowledging Migra's decision, prepares to respond, and despite the growing tension, her face remains calm. Her authority made everyone submit instantly. She spared them and ordered a retreat, taking with her the unconscious body of Ale and her finger. While the defeated flee, Migra does not avert his gaze and thinks, what are their true motives, and why are they attacking innocent locals? Once they laughed at and pushed Negris away, but now the same people who doubted him call him indispensable. Plan magic training so Migra and his companions say goodbye and peacefully leave Florence behind. Azul, filled with envy and a sense of defeat, is stuck in thoughts about why Migra always completely overshadows him. A flashback brings out their childhood. Exiled mocks Negris's weakness, unaware of his future strength and growth. Once proud yet protective, Azul extended a helping hand to the shy Negris when they lived in the orphanage. Unexpectedly, Migra's unique ability to assess value brings him admiration and makes everyone notice his quiet talent. Deep down, Exiled stubbornly clings to superiority, demanding attention and refusing to acknowledge Negris's growth. Offended, Exiled endlessly blames Negris for their defeat and for complete personal humiliation. When his own teammate called him, Exiled exploded in despair, and at that moment the carriage arrived. Suddenly, a sinister smile appears on his face. He starts weaving insidious plans again, and still refuses to give up his pride. Meanwhile, Negra closely watches Alice's training, constantly urging her, restrain the overwhelming power of your magic. Negris notices that Fels is unusually upset. Negris is puzzled by her sudden silence and emotional detachment. Despite disappointment over the stagnation in affairs, Migras looks in surprise as her loyalty rating rapidly jumps and already reaches 10. Negress patiently and gently calms Fels, looking for a way to bypass her growth limitations. Meanwhile, Eli's proudly demonstrates her improved control over magic, and with loud excitement and childlike confidence declares she is the winner. Pondering the rivalry, Negress racks her brains, how to support both Fels's growth and self. Distant cry for help caught everyone's attention somewhere deeper in the forest. A real trouble is unfolding. As they fly forward, Migras sees a battle scene, an overturned carriage, complete chaos, and familiar faces. To his shock, Negra sees Ezel robbing right in the middle of the conflict, still aggressive, still consumed by selfishness. Ezel accuses Neggers of their broken equipment, boldly throwing mockery and twisted arguments in his face. Instead of retreating, Negress's team boldly blocks Ezel's path and shouts loudly and sternly, "Step aside now." Ezel angrily stomps forward, stunned by Negress's sudden growth and how loyal his new allies are. With a confident smile, he invites Negress to leave the team and rejoin Silverwing. He reveals a plan to kill and promises nobility if Negress betrays Florence and helps kill the queen. Trying to tempt him even more, Ezel promises status and power, and Negress responds with a cold, unwavering refusal. With steadfast confidence, Negress rejects the offer and stands beside Florence and the people who trust him. Ezel demands Negress be returned, insists on loyalty, and threatens violence if he refuses this twisted invitation. He cruelly accuses Negress of past failures, pressures his guilt, and manipulates to force him to obey again. Fels fiercely defends Negress's honor and stops her, not letting her hands be stained. Ezel mocks her strength with a sadistic smile, mocking applause belittles Negress's choice. With weak steps forward, with an unwavering gaze, he boldly declared, the true opponent of Ezel now stands before him. Ezel mocks Negress again, hysterically laughing and calling him useless, unworthy of serious consideration. Tension is rising. Ezel suddenly lunges forward in fury, while meanwhile Alice prepares to enter the fight alongside Fels. Without hesitation, Negress sharply turned and rushed into the forest, leaving Ezel clearly frozen with surprise. Angry and confused, Ezel chases after Negress along a narrow forest path, shouting threats. Negress runs deeper, calculating a retreat. He wants as few people as possible to get hurt during the upcoming clash. I cannot reproduce this line due to an offensive term. Please replace the character's name or confirm it is fictional, and I will promptly rewrite the phrase in Ukrainian. Ezel's confidence cracks and breaks. Pain and shock flash across his face and stun him, leaving him speechless. Negress surgically strikes Ezel's ribs, using a weak spot that Ezel himself once calmly explained. The blow lands precisely. Ezel is thrown back, while Negress remains focused, unshaken, and with cold calm in his gaze. Ezel falls to the ground, screaming from unbearable pain and shock. Clutching his side, he was completely unprepared for real pain. Despite everything, Migras casts healing magic on Ezel again, choosing mercy over cruelty. Ezel is puzzled. The pain just disappeared, and Negus calmly says the wound was healed right during the fight. Unwilling to admit weakness, Ezel lunges forward again, shouting insults and throwing himself straight into the attack. Blades clashed again, but Negress does not budge an inch. He meets aggression with focused resistance. Migras forces Ezel to finally face the truth about his actions, choices, and the pride that betrays him. Ezel, stunned and broken, slowly got up, and Negress led him to the resting holy sword. Negus explained, healing is not kindness, but pity for the one who is so broken inside. He declared, Ezel must live, not flee, and atone under the scattered light of the forest. Migras healed his former comrade not out of pity, but to teach him responsibility. Azul falls from shock, crushed by guilt, while Negress calmly walks to the sword in the distance. Negress orders you to apologize and return to the guild to fix his life. Having completed his mission, he said goodbye, left the group, and confidently walked away. In the guild, the girl learns that Ezel's squad encountered an ambush on their return. Migras hands them over to the authorities and insists on being vigilant so they do not escape again. The spectators stirred and whispered, not believing their own eyes, when the captured SAP S-rank team was exposed by the one once despised Degraz. Suspicion creeps in when the newest member of the Silver Wings is strangely not listed in the registry at the reception. Tension explodes. Ezel's comrades quarrel and blame him entirely to cover themselves. The guild launches a full investigation and decides to keep Ezel in custody until official charges of misconduct are brought. Negress learns with horror that the party might be enslaved. This is the punishment for attempted murder of guild members. Rejected and doomed to silence, Ezel's team finally feels how far they have fallen from grace. Behind closed doors, the guild bitterly reviews its failures and considers how favoritism based on status allowed corruption to take root. All attempts to defend them fail. Lisa rejects the pleas, firmly deciding to uphold justice. This scandal exposes how the guild covers for the powerful, ignoring their character for the sake of influence. An official statement is prepared, admitting the guild's failure directly allowed the crisis to unfold. Although she holds a high rank, Lisa publicly acknowledges her past mistakes and officially apologizes to Negris for unfair treatment. With sincere regret, she bows to Negris and thanks him for capturing the Silver Wings rogue. Negris stunned Lisa. He broke the rules and openly challenged the strict prohibition. Officials are not allowed to bow. Preserving political power is a matter of survival. The guild may lose power to the church or capital. The guild leadership hesitates to show weakness, afraid to lose authority if it admits Silverwing's crimes. But Negra feels Lisa's sincerity and understands. Lisa's loyalty does not blind her nor prevent her from doing the right thing. He asks her not to bow. Her modesty overwhelms him and washes away formal barriers between ranks.
We see his arm bend as if it were made of rubber.
Admits Silverwing's crimes. But Negra feels Lisa's sincerity. Officials join the investigation, eager to uncover the truth about what happened and restore people's trust. Negris and his team, having reflected on the day's events, decide to rest and eat together. Although Azel's arrest brought relief, Negris is still afraid the guild may take revenge on Lissy. Late at night near the guild, a group noticed Lisa. She was standing alone and silently waiting. Surprised by her appearance, they call out, but Lisa turns away. It is clear she is tired and anxious. Lisa hesitates to speak, but Negris quietly steps forward, sensing that Lisa still carries an emotional burden. When Lisa suddenly declares that she is leaving the guild forever, everyone freezes in shock. Lisa explains how insanely irritated she is by the actions of the guild members and the fact that they rely on unfounded judgments. Previously, the guildmaster reprimanded Lisa. He got angry because she apologized to an allegedly lower adventurer. She stubbornly held her position and accused him of consciously allowing corruption in Silverwing to continue. The head of the guild justified his actions by placing recognition from the nobility and power above ethical duties. The guildmaster rages. He values reputation above human lives and pushes away defenseless victims as worthless. Lisa, overwhelmed with disgust at his selfishness, clenches her fist and angrily strikes the table. Standing her ground, she announces her resignation, choosing honesty over complicity and corruption. Negris and his team are moved to tears and cannot understand how it happened that she was deprived of her job. Trembling for her future, the elven companion asked Negris if she could work in the ghetto. The group mourns the loss of such a principled person as Lisa and sees her value is not in status. The black woman is shocked, evaluates her metrics. Her skill is top level, and her loyalty score is simply astounding. Her potential impresses them. They argue whether to call her to join Florence's highly qualified team in the ghetto. Migras cheerfully approaches her and sprinkles proposals, gladly trying to give her a second chance. Lisa meets the leader of Florence. Standing in a circle of people supporting her, a new beginning is finally near. She hesitates, calling the ghetto a forced labor camp, but Negris explains this is their common base. Florence, the leader of the ghetto, addresses Lisa and insists only skills matter to her, not gender or status. Negris passionately insisted Lisa's S-rank skill will be a great support for Florence in her reconstruction, focusing on crafts and education. Her 10-versed service in the guild made her an ideal teacher and ignited in Florence a dream of learning. Florence solemnly welcomes Lisa, promises her support, and sincerely thanks Negris for the key role in her second chance. Lisa smiles broadly, easily, and sincerely because she was accepted into a new community that supports and shares a common goal. Florence asks in surprise why Lisa is here, and Negris says it was Fels's recommendation, not his decision. Negris decisively defends Lisa, stating that her apology, departure, and resistance to Ezel's crimes are genuine, meaningful acts. Impressed by her honesty, Florence acknowledges how strong Lisa was when she boldly stood against corruption in the institution. Meanwhile, a group approaches, attracting everyone's attention because something unexpected is unfolding near the ghetto base. Lisa feels drawn in when Fels is about to tell in detail about Negros's achievements and recent efforts. Florence quietly asks him about rumors. Supposedly, the S-level party has targeted her directly. She understands that Negris quietly covered for her and reads his hint with joyful admiration. Florence is overwhelmed with emotions and loudly declares that Migras will protect them, and everyone around blushes with embarrassment. He says that some nobleman ordered Florence's murder, and this proves her enemy is not ordinary. Florence quietly reflects, combining Negris's explanation with a broader conspiracy. This requires deeper investigation and cautious actions. Knowing the risks, the group decides to move carefully and watch every suspicious move closely. After Azala was captured, Negris's team obtained gold and gratitude for saving the merchant carriage. Savoring the sweets received, Nigris was pondering how to spend the generous reward. Fels offered him the first bite, smiling proudly, and he hesitated, embarrassed by her kindness. Moved by her gesture, Nigris thanked her until another teammate noticed their closeness with surprise. Suddenly, Alice appeared without warning with mysterious luggage, and this immediately raised many questions and interrupted the growing tension. Alice decided to move, and she immediately felt better. Here she was accepted, and there were no prejudices. While Alice was cheerfully settling in, Fels was growing uneasy. He felt that her connection with Nigris was under threat. Promising not to interfere, Alice resolutely set off, and Fels silently watched them with his gaze. Negris suggested going for supplies. She felt that Alice in the house would bring new changes for the whole household. She froze upon hearing his words, and Fels' heart trembled at the thought of going alone with him. Together, Migris and Fels slowly walked into the town, side by side along quiet forest paths. As soon as they stepped onto the crowded streets, the villagers waved gratefully. Some still remembered Nigris' previous exploits. One craftsman said that Nigris' ability to appraise things had changed his life, and because of this, he gathered a crowd of people ready to thank him. Children playfully shouted and surrounded the pair from all sides with curiosity and tenderness, while laughter filled the air. Among them, a little girl stepped forward and quietly asked if magic could help the wounded. Suddenly, the girl recognized Migris and joyfully realized he was the one who healed her father. Her father appeared, gently scolding her, but suddenly froze. He recognized Nigris, a man from his troubled past. He hesitantly confirmed that Nigris had restored his arm, so he was able to return to honest work again. Grateful but nervous, the man thanked her, and Nigra quietly asked about his past atonement. Overwhelmed with emotions, the girl smiled brightly and thanked the Negrita once again for saving her beloved father. Seeing the father and daughter safe, Nigra quietly smiled and sighed with relief. Her heart felt lighter. It fell. Bells, carefully reading his reaction, smiled too quietly, proud of who he had become.
And if she wants to go to the surface to meet her father?
The girl smiled brightly and thanked the Negrita once again. Around them, waves of hands and warm farewells buzzed as friends wished them a safe journey through the city. On the way, they came across Lisa, who had just finished teaching and was surprised to see them. Lisa found new meaning. She taught children and quietly but persistently helped her community. They shared smiles and light conversation, grateful that after such a hard struggle, he had finally returned to peace. The Negrita looked at them with tenderness, her heart warmed by the bonds they forged together in hardship. Fels promised herself to live selflessly and never again to take the path that Elle once chose. Nigris was filled with unwavering confidence, looked ahead resolute, ready to protect the life he had built alongside his true companion. And far below, beneath the castle, Elle sat alone in chains, surrounded by silence and shadows. The noble guest laughed at his fall, once a proud chief, now humiliated and in chains. Despite the humiliation, Azel clung to his goal and whispered a challenge. His mission was not yet over. The elder, impressed by Ezel's unwavering determination, gave him another chance to regain his lost ambition.
He will look around.
The noble guest laughed at his fall, once a proud chief, now humiliated and in chains. The nobleman explained, the secret power of the summoning stone sharply increases when used solely for selfish desire. The stone awakened and questioned Ezel's will, and his response twisted into hatred. Consumed by thirst for revenge, Ezel roared Nigris's name and swore to kill him at any cost. Dark magic devoured his body, while the nobleman coldly watched, betting everything on Ezel's rage. Under the quiet daylight, Nigris sat drinking tea with friends and had no idea that darkness was gathering again. He explained that his healing cured not only wounds, it restored bodies to their original state. Everyone listened as he talked about how to fully restore health, and Alice seemed more focused on the pancake. Suddenly, Alice grasped the depth of his words, stunned by the impossible power hidden behind his magic. While most healers relied on natural recovery, Negris proudly claimed he could completely bypass these limits. Fels immediately felt her deep understanding. Healing dismissed pain and reached only for true restoration. Doubts gnawed at her, but the dark-skinned woman calmed her, seeing potential in her, and whispered, "Don't run." Their peaceful moment was interrupted by urgent knocking. Lisa rushed inside, panic already shining on her face. In horror, she screamed that something terrible had happened. The ghetto was attacked. Stunned by the news, Negris's group rushed outside and saw the streets lay in ruins. Monsters prowled the ravaged district, and the question immediately arose, why did these creatures appear here right now? Among the ruins, a child refused to run. The blacks rushed forward, frightened by the danger. Alice voluntarily agreed to help, and confidently activated the newly learned magic, while Niggerson entrusted her with the rescue. With a flash, she summoned the Black Cat, a lightning wrapped in shadow that at the last moment averted the threat with an incredibly swift dash. Nearby, terrible enemies terrorized the survivors. Some begged for help, while goblins and monsters approached. Fells broke inside, smashing enemies on the way, and Migras covered the others, crying out her name with relief. Nigress appeared at the very moment, shouting for them to run and assuring that there was no one around.
which includes hunger.
Nearby, terrible enemies terrorized the survivors. Some begged for help, while goblins and among the rubble, he overheard a man with a broken heart. He called what happened unforgivable and senseless. Florence confirmed the worst of what Nigras feared. The monster attacked suddenly and had already covered the outer perimeter before help could arrive. Despite mobilization, she admitted, the losses were serious, and even their strongest could not hold the line. The villagers begged for help in despair, cornered, while the monsters destroyed their houses and their very lives. Negris agreed without hesitation, promising to protect the people and push back the chaos. He remembered the joy he had given earlier and resolutely set about restoring that peace again. In Migris's eyes, a fire of determination flared. He vowed that no one would die anymore. Clenching his fists, Nugris straightened up and decisively declared, without hesitation, that he would protect everyone. In the guild hall, rumors spread. A clash of two dragons broke out nearby, although only one was expected, his. Comrades rushed to help, but Negris asked Florence instead to stand in defense of the city. Florence pondered, does he doubt her strength or consider her a burden? He stubbornly held her gaze, entrusted her with the people from the town, and sincerely believed in her unwavering heart. Florence held her breath as it just dawned on her. Now the responsibility was solely on her. Returning to Nuggers with new determination, she promised without hesitation to protect the ghetto. Mission, Nugger walked toward danger. She smiled quietly. She knew that her strength was extremely important for their mission. Suddenly, a new threat loomed. Alice and her mysterious cat partner quickly assessed the situation. Hearing about the cat's skills, he trusted him, and this dispelled her doubts about staying behind. And suddenly Negra grabbed Alice and rushed forward so urgently that she didn't even have time to doubt his decision. Although others doubted him, he insisted. Her strength was decisive to withstand what awaited ahead. From the nearby ruins, smoke rose in clouds, and under fragile stones, someone was trapped, wounded, and hidden. A huge dragon hung over their heads. Its presence knocks you off your feet. Another wounded dragon was already lying on the ground. The children clung to the fallen dragon and screamed as the black beast mercilessly approached. Tigress and Eli's crouched down, eyes wide open, as the black dragon moved straight toward the children. The dragon lunged into attack, but the girl bravely threw herself with her body, shielding her fallen dragon. Suddenly, an invisible force struck the dragon's neck, and inside it, a fierce explosion erupted. When the explosion thundered, the child was pulled back, and Nuggers rushed to meet the threat. Despite his powerful strike, the black dragon did not move at all, and everyone stared at Negris with disbelief. They noticed a strange core embedded in the dragon's chest, a node that glowed, and was wrapped in a protective shield. In the dragon's chest, Negra Azazel suddenly caught sight. He was alive, yet bound to the monster's flesh. He weakly uttered Negris's name, barely conscious, as life slowly left his tormented body. Suddenly Azazel shouted with all his might, and his voice rolled across the battlefield, urging Negris to act with. When the dragon lunged, Negus grabbed the child and dashed away, desperately fleeing from debris and claws. The dragon relentlessly rushed forward. Alice was preparing an attack, and Azazel was still trapped in the beast's chest. Alice unleashed a barrage of lightning magic, aiming directly at the shield that held the core of the dragon's defense. Despite the attack, the strange barrier worked again, leaving Negris and Alice confused and cautious. They recognized the structure and the ancient relic known only from forgotten legends and magical chronicles. The front circle absorbed spells, while the rear repelled weapons, so all attacks together became futile. They felt the magical formation could be broken. Its endurance was limited, though its power was impressive. Filled with fierce determination, Alice announced the plan, to strike the formation directly with thunder magic. The reason was simple. She also wanted to protect everyone as best as she could. The black dragon rushed forward, unaware that behind him Alice's most powerful attack was already gathering. She released a huge lightning bolt. A deafening explosion stunned everyone and shook the battlefield with destructive force. Negris realized Alice's emotional strength enhanced her power and made it possible to break the magical barrier. Weakened, Azazel confirmed. The attack worked. He was exhausted, but the defense cracked. The transformed Berserkasul broke free with a roar contrary to expectations and threatened both friends and foes alike. Deafening explosion tore through the air nuggers, and Alyssa tried to figure out what was causing this new wave. Somewhere far away, a sudden outbreak of monsters destroyed a house, and Negus telepathically received a warning from his ally. Suddenly they realized, Azel's transformation revolves around the ability to summon the very same that releases monsters throughout the city. Nugris knew now he was Azel's new target, and the rest were exhausted and no longer able to fight further. He asked Alyssa to flee with Yui, because he believed their protection was more important than a dubious victory. Although Alyssa protested, Nedros stubbornly demanded that they survive. Chances were slim, but sacrifice was inevitable. Torn by doubts but trusting him, Alyssa stood firm. Negus shouted for them to run without hesitation.
Easily lift him up.
Their protection was more important than a dubious victory. Although the monsters attacked again in a crowd, Negus begged Florence to lead Alyssa and Yui out before the situation worsened. Fel stood silently, gripping her weapon tightly, and her resolute step forward made Nugris freeze in surprise. Despite her injuries, Fels declared she would fight. She was neither going to abandon her comrades nor retreat. Negris doubted her abilities, and Fels could not let go of the thought, do they see in her only a bird? Alice, exhausted to the bone, refused to give up and carried stubbornness within herself. She had enough strength to deliver the final blow. Reinforcements confirmed, the city is cleared. One suggested staying and again calmly stood next to Negris. Florence confidently and firmly stepped forward and said she would not allow Negris to face this threat alone. Next to Negris, Florence made it clear they would survive by protecting each other as equals. Together, the group stood united and ready to confront Azelgain. This time, they would not fight alone. Negris stood behind her team and watched them step forward together as faithful and determined comrades. He realized his fear of losing them meant one thing. Until now, he had not fully believed in their strength. With renewed faith, Negris entrusted his power to each comrade, reliable, capable, and battle-hardened. Shoulder to shoulder, they moved forward not alone, but together to protect each other. The nobleman sat by the window and watched the unrest, anticipating that chaos would engulf the impoverished outskirts. Meanwhile, while sipping tea, a thought crossed his mind, to use an ancient magic circle and punish those whose skills sow chaos. Despite threats like appraisal and the legendary witch, he placed all his hope on his pawn Ezel. I am sure the healer's power is a trifle. He planned to catch its bearer and snatch a complete victory for himself. Megers and his allies stood against Ezel's group, but did not know how to break through the impenetrable barrier defense. A deafening roar rolled overhead, and Negris raised his eyes, shuddering at the approach of the winged creature. Despite severe wounds, the Dragon Guardian returned, and with desperate determination took up defending the city again. The elf fervently urged immediate action, hoping that only joint efforts would save the dragon before it was defeated. But Negris realized, going inside means interrupting the fierce clash of two titanic monsters already fighting. Steadfastly holding his ground, Negris proposed an idea uncertain, yet still a possible solution to end the battle once and for all. Negris understood. The black dragon stood in defense of Ezel, but his attacks were almost futile. He saw in Ezel's healing a way to break the fusion of man and beast. If Ezel is returned to his original form, the dragon may lose connection and become completely immobilized. The team realized, without Ezel inside, the dragon will collapse, the body will not hold together. Confidently, Negris declared that his goal was to reach the core of Ezel, heal him, and together achieve the final victory. Negris suddenly realized, to reach Ezel, they first needed to invoke the powerful magical Circleberry. They wondered if the magic circle responded directly to Ezel's thoughts and involuntarily adjusted itself to protect him. Negris carefully studied its scheme and noticed, the defense alternated, sometimes magical, sometimes physical, but never simultaneous. Determined, the team agreed to coordinate attacks, testing whether they could exploit a timing weakness. With blades ready, the warriors advanced, prepared to challenge the circle and expose Ezel's heart. Negris revealed the plan and at the same time confused Ezel, forcing his magical circle's defense to sharply reorganize. Fels and Florens rushed forward simultaneously, trying to draw Ezel's attention with a synchronized aggressive attack. Their joint assault raised Ezel's anti-physical barrier, just as Negris had planned. Both warriors struck relentlessly, overloading the magical circle to its limits, while Alice prepared her next decisive move. Noticing the chance, Alice unleashed the thunder attack, risking hitting her own to disrupt the decisive moment. Negris and Eliza rushed to positions, coordinating their strike, though they were a few moments late. He decisively released his multi-layered healing, aiming a precise impulse at the gap in Ezel's unstable magical defense. His strikes grew stronger, forcing Ezel's barrier to respond, while thunder of Alice's support roared behind him. Ezel struggled heavily, recalibrating the circle from anti-physical to anti-thunder to gain those crucial extra seconds. Noticing the vulnerability, Negris dashed forward to break through and reach Ezel up close. As the barrier flickered, he surged upward to Exiled, finally confronted him face-to-face in the air. He grabbed Ezel directly and, thereby confirmed, only one magical circle can act at a time. Controlling healing magic, Negris cast a full restoration spell to disconnect Ezel from the dragon.
And attacks again, using ultrasonic waves.
Finally confronted him face-to-face in the air. He grabbed Ezel. Suddenly a memory surfaced of childhood days in the library about how Ezel and Negris were just friends then, in that library. In the library, he snatched a book from Negris, and suddenly Frozite was about healing. He got bored and challenged the black girl to a duel, hoping to draw her into a sword fight. Idris calmly declined and honestly admitted he did not like fighting and swords. Instead, he remained devoted to studying support magic. With a confident smile, Ezel insisted that Negris stay behind and promised that he would handle the fight himself. Frozen suddenly, he looked up embarrassed by Azul's sudden determination to protect him. Ezel promised to one day gather a squad so that Negra could safely cover his back. He confidently extends his hand, calling to follow him without any questions into the future they created together. Moved by his sincerity, Negris took his hand and agreed to walk beside him. When he made the childhood vow, Ezel jumped forward and Negros locked and covered from behind. But in reality, Ezel's body had fused with the circle, and the spell on Negris's heel was struggling. Ezel's soul completely merged with the circle, separating it by ordinary healing methods was impossible. Pain consumed him. He was bursting into a scream and begging for help until the body fell apart into pieces. Negris thought that all his life he had only sought recognition, but now he began to doubt his motives. He fell in agony, and nearby the warriors froze on alert, ready for any threat from the remnants of the circle. Without saying a word, Negris stepped forward and embraced Ezel's fading body. Comrades stood silently around. He made a difficult decision. The soul was already too lost to save it. Even when Ezel begged, Negris refused. He still clung to power, not redemption. Though his heart was torn in two, he admitted the truth. His obsession overcame even the power of healing magic. Distorted and enraged, he blindly rushed into attack, shouting that he was above all, while his body rapidly deteriorated. But deep inside, fear flared. He confessed the final truth. He did not want to disappear. As Basil crumbled to ashes, Negus watched silently. Behind him stood the team. The battle was finally over. Exhausted after the fight, everyone on the team lifts their eyes to the sky. Smoke of victory rises from the battlefield. Negers thanks his comrades and entrusts the care of Alice, and Yui fails to recover. Having found the wounded dragon guardian, Negers wildly rushes to save him, trying to make it before life fades. Negus, filled with gratitude for the dragon's sacrifice, thanks him and at the same time cannot hide his surprise. Why did he agree to help so unexpectedly? Having healed, the dragon sits calmly, and Negers wonders why he helped them. The dragon blushed slightly and shyly but sincerely thanked this surprised Negus. The dragon quietly giggles. Negris watches as he flies away, and it is heard how those around him praise him. Florence watches with trepidation how closely Negris is connected to the dragon and cannot tear herself away from his healing magic and sincere kindness. When Negris says how important Florence is to him, she freezes from his sincerity until he gently takes her hand. He swears that he will always heal her, and Florence holds her breath. Her heart pounds from his unexpected tenderness. They quietly stood amid the ruins, silently watching as destruction covered this poor district. Negris vowed to seek justice for this destruction and to expose Ezel's betrayal and his connections with the demon race. In a few days, people united and set out to rebuild. Their smiles did not fade, although the difficulties rooted in the prolonged struggle still did not recede. In response to the question, Negris admits, without hesitation, he gave money to the guild to support the reconstruction. Alice is still exhausted after magical efforts. Although she tries, restoration and rebuilding still require time. She admits that she regrets. She gave her savings for the journey, but tries to brush it off. Having calmed down, Alice stated that she would help, although she still does not feel any real difference in powers. Clinging to the idea of possible changes, Negris suggests checking Eliza's indicators to assess her growth. To their surprise, her magical power now reads as droidist, and she, surpassing all expectations and impressing them both, did it. What was previously considered the limit rank SS now astonishingly reads as SSS. Proud of her power, Eliza demands praise and, shining with a smile, calls herself the strongest sorceress. Encouraged, she joyfully rushes forward, and Negris calmly watches her, radiating quiet confidence. Florence approaches warmly and sincerely, grateful to Negris for constant support and for how she so easily lifts everyone's spirits. Negris assures her, do not fear for money. He attributes all difficulties to Assel's betrayal, Florence. Florence says, thanks to Negris, no one holds grudges. Hope and smiles have returned to everyone.
Hearing the explosion, he rushed to Miko's scream.
To Negris for constant support and for how she so easily lifts every. Lawrence tries to talk to Negris alone, but the townspeople urgently call her back. They need help. From above, Negris and his companions see how the townspeople rejoice. Restoration progresses, step by step. Seeing their resilience, the elf woman is touched and realizes she must adopt their unbreakable optimism. Although everyone insists she is strong, she quietly confesses her persistent doubts and that she feels inadequate. With a gentle smile, Nedgers says he would not have stayed if Fells had not been nearby. Shoulder to shoulder, he quietly thanks her for walking this path with him and bringing him comfort and strength. When he recalls her dedication and lessons, he admits she is the one he trusts and cherishes above all. Negris sincerely asks, will she stay by his side from now on? Waiting for her answer, shocked and unable to utter a word, Fells looks at Negris. Her heart quietly trembles from his sincere confession. Overflowing with joy, Fel vows to be by Negris's side throughout her life. Meanwhile, somewhere else a dark figure reads the newspaper. Assel's defeat ignites anger and sows increasing uncertainty. A powerful nobleman learns the poor district survived unscathed, something everyone recently considered absolutely impossible. When he realized that Negris was behind everything, it became clear to him the healing magic of assessment is the decisive force. At that very moment, Knight rushes in to tell about the uprising and Negris's unexpected involvement. Jin, leader of the Order of the Holy Knight, enters so authoritatively that a lad Alfred is literally stunned by her appearance. She warns, breaking the fragile balance between kingdoms, guilds, and the church could cause the complete collapse of the state. Aladdin replied coldly, warning Jean, do not interfere anymore in what does not concern her. Despite his threats, Jean still came to investigate. He believed that Aladdin's ambitions threatened the citizens and the stability of the kingdom. Jean firmly declares that their actions will not go unnoticed. Surveillance of the poor district immediately intensifies. As soon as she said everything she had, Jean calmly left, and Aladdin silently watched her with his gaze. Many dismissed Jean's threat, calling the Lord of Darkness a fool, but still remained cautious because of A. From above, he notices Jean's younger sister in the yard, recalling the troubling rumor about her. A whisper spreads. Behind her innocent appearance smolders a forbidden cursed skill. Alad smiles ominously through the window, noticeably intrigued by a new possible threat or opportunity. Watching Negris gain influence and new allies join him, many sneer, sensing that chaos is already rolling ahead. The poor district, once lying in ruins after the attack, miraculously revived much faster than anyone could expect. The crowd raised their fists in excitement and loudly chanted the name Asisha. The celebration erupted. Although she was embarrassed, Isha carried drinks in costume. Her comrades admired her, and she laughed at how quickly she was becoming popular. Peasants impatiently called her to the glass, while others warned, do not take Isha too far. At the neighboring table, Negris and friends watched the lively crowd, savoring the festive atmosphere. Lawrence answered confidently and straightened up, while the crowd joyfully celebrated the city's restoration. Negris carefully watched the people. Old anxieties surfaced in his memory, but the unwavering will to rebuild everything impressed him. The world became serious. Negris trusted Florence and confessed that he was gnawed by a hidden truth that lay behind the great nobles. Florence's face turned to stone. She realized that Azel's fury was closely connected with a noble, secret, bloody mission, and began to ponder. Going over the clues, Negris understood. Behind this attack stood a powerful nobleman who organized it from behind the scenes. Florence explained why they were cautious. She already knew about the threats from the nobility, so they began secretly infiltrating institutions to gather information. This noble lord sold people into slavery and bribed, manipulating power through illegal trade and hidden wealth. Negris and Florence talked about the fact that taking control of a poor district means subjugating the underground market of the entire kingdom. At first, three great powers, the guild, the church, and capital, maintained a fragile balance, but the district's growth shook this delicate equilibrium. The nobleman's motive was pure ambition. He unleashed chaos, disregarding people's lives, sacrificing them for control. The intelligence of the royal capital confirmed. The berserk magic circle Assel created a mighty nobleman. It turned out that this was Alfred Alad, the prime minister's assistant, who held the true power over everything in the shadows. Negris reacted bitterly. This name revived memories, and irritation grew in him due to Alad's relentless cruelty and ambitions. Florence warned, on the other side of Alad, suspicious royal movements hinted that something much darker was quietly unfolding. Throughout the kingdom, even the Holy Church behaved strangely, and their leader with a sword appeared too often. Florence whispered a troubling rumor about a mysterious girl who possessed a rare, unknown cursed skill. Shortly after the attack on the district, rumors and stories about the appearance of the Holy Knight simultaneously flared up across the capital. Although uncertainty hung around, Florence insisted strange forces had already stirred and warned Negras to be as careful as possible. Rumors now whispered that Negras was the Dark Lord, although he was celebrated as a local hero. Although rumors spread, the Nigers explained, he did not act alone. The credit belongs to his entire team. Florence started a romantic gossip, jokingly suggested ruling the district, and everyone froze stunned and embarrassed. Negras just wanted peace and fun together with his teammates, no fame or political rumors. Florence smiled warmly and confidently told everyone that the information gathering would continue. But today was supposed to be a day of celebration. Instead, one of the comrades sat thoughtfully and stared at the ruined district beyond the crowd. In the royal palace, the leaders of the three factions gathered for a tense emergency meeting at the highest level. Praying Prime Minister Floem, Jean from the Holy Church, and Guild Master Vera stood as representatives. With sharp sarcasm, she burst in late and without hesitation returned to the others. The stern gaze of Flu Mok Jean, while he lounged indifferently, filled the room with tension and anxiety. When the scandals flared up fully, Vera boldly announced the intention to rebuild the corrupt Adventurers Guild from the very. Jane calmly shifted all attention to the main point, saying that the matter was one to solve the problem of the Lord of Darkness. Flum sharply brushed off the threat, saying that no resident of the poor district could defeat the Black Dragon. Pointing to a lad's role, Jean insisted, the crisis arose because of the Prime Minister's right hand. With anxiety, Flum warned, unchecked power could reach the capital and shake their political control. Instead of giving the order to kill, Jean suggested capturing the man to find out what was really behind all this. As soon as Vera spoke about Jean's sister, the tension instantly tightened. Jean resolutely assured that she would protect her without hesitation. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a mysterious figure called everyone boring and was not at all impressed by the events unfolding around the kingdom. That evening, the festival in the poor district was bustling. Laughter, drinks, and celebrations filled every cramped table. Niggers joyfully made his way through the crowd, watching to see if Alice was okay and absorbing the festive energy. Suddenly, rumors of a fight spread. Niggers rushed to the place frightened because Fells and Florence were nowhere to be found. Nigress was sneaking through narrow alleys following the noise, not understanding what exactly was causing that strange clatter, and suddenly fell. Bells dominated the sparring, teasing her rival, saying, "You are weak because you don't use the proper body improvement techniques." Florence corrected Niggers's form, sharply pointing out his mistakes in swordsmanship and that he still relied too much on magic. Florence acknowledged his strength. Niggers's spirit acted in such a way that he would hardly lose easily. Despite her skills, Fells admitted, recent events had shaken her confidence, and deep down she still felt too weak. Fells tightly gripped the sword in her hand, her heart burned, yearning to become stronger and protect those nearby. Although there was tension between them before, Florence still agreed to continue Fells' training. She saw that she had grown and was truly dedicated. Nearby, Nigress quietly watched the scene unfold, surprised by their efforts and completely unaware of what they really meant. He was moved because he understood. Fells shines with happiness precisely when she chooses her own path and pushes herself forward. Without interrupting, Nigress quietly stepped away, leaving them to train resolutely under the fading sky. The young girl sat alone in the garden, unaware that a lurking figure was quietly approaching from behind. The sinister man revealed his target, the mysterious cursed girl, marked for something dangerous. In the royal hall, the elder sister persistently asks the girl to wait quietly during today's meeting. He sternly orders, tell no one and under no circumstances remove those gloves. Night recedes and rumors spread among the nobles. A cursed girl has appeared in the estate. Her ears catch anxious whispers. Frightened and heartbroken, she buries herself away from watchful eyes. Judgmental glances, she looks around fearfully at the sudden voice, looks at her gloved hands and finds no answer. A stranger appears, a friendly face hides his true intentions. He asks her, playing friendly, and extends his hand. Suddenly he reaches out his hand and insists on playing. She resists, her voice trembling, not sure if he is really dangerous. His face darkened, a sinister smile stretched across his lips. Her "don't touch me" was not just fear breaking through in words. Cheerful company is gathering, and Alisa is yawning still, exhausted from yesterday's adventures and magical training. Hearing footsteps outside, the boy abruptly turns around and is struck with surprise. Someone unexpected is approaching the front door. The fierce guardian dragon blocked the way. The group froze stunned by its sudden appearance. The dragon growls softly asking why they are here, and they cautiously explain that they have come with peaceful intent. Curiosity flares up. This guard almost never goes down to the lower quarter and suspicions grow, because his silence only thickens the tension. Meanwhile, the girl lies unconscious, tightly clutching the glowing glove, and not noticing how the commotion outside is already growing. The dragon growls louder and louder in panic, and its restless movements whisper one thing: something is wrong. Somio nearby is in mortal danger. Through dense bushes, the dragon finds the fallen girl and rushes swiftly to her. He finds her with wide-open, frightened eyes. She trembles, barely holding onto memory, clutching shining sealed emblems. Drops of sweat run down her face, consciousness fades, breathing becomes shallow, a strange force begins to twitch, becoming unstable. The dragon explains everything, trusts Nigris, and sincerely believes only he is capable of protecting the fragile life of the girl. The girl is frozen in the dragon's palms, motionless. Nigris quietly observes, and his gaze is full of determination. Having examined his bruises, Nigris realizes energy is extremely low, and treatment must be started immediately. Magic flows, her wounds slowly heal. Healing bubbles gently envelop the hand and carefully seal them. Although stable, she is still unconscious. Nigris requests a room so that she can fully recover in silence and peace. Draw. The dragon led them to the mansion and carefully settled the girl in a quiet corner so she could rest. In the calm room, horses slowly walk. Everyone silently looks at her, hoping that she will wake up and no longer feel pain. Her eyes slowly open, and the girl looks up confused, bewildered, not understanding where she has ended up. Frightened by the cheerful voices, she flinched, and strangers warmly greeted her, and her heart beat even stronger. Quietly smiling, Nigris explains everything: how dragons save, how they heal, and where their humble refuge stands. Nigris utters his name. The girl is silent. Tension rises, others press her, demanding an answer. As soon as they noticed her discomfort, the tension eased. Everyone gently calmed her and gave her as much time as needed to feel safe. After a short pause, she whispered, Altera, the only name left in her memory. Questions pour at her one after another. Confused, Altera admits she remembers nothing, neither home nor family. The group guesses. Nigris suggests memory loss, and Altera quietly agrees she is no longer sure where truth ends and fiction begins. They looked more closely at her gloves. Curiosity flared in the group, and someone recognized the pattern. It was something incredibly rare and sacred. They recognized the badge as a church relic, created to suppress the powerful abilities and magic of the dark-skinned sorceress. He activates the evaluation skill. Energy bursts from his hand, revealing hidden information about Alter's true identity. The status screen stunned him. Her stats were unreadable, and errors popped up in all ability categories. He looks intently at her status: primordial destruction. Everything she touches can instantly turn to nothing. Before he could comprehend this, pain tore through his chest where she touched. A blinding flash erupted, and he fell. Falling, Nigris clutches his chest. Panic spreads through him. His heart pounds wildly. Magical backlash overwhelms him. Altera watches as others panic around her. She is confused and asks herself. She does not understand what exactly caused such a reaction. Nigris tries to evaluate her again. Earlier, he missed several key details, and now he must find out her full condition. Nothing acti. As soon as he activates it, the evaluation immediately fails, and everyone is shocked. His skill has never failed like this before. He assumes that her power effects, not only objects, even the ability to evaluate, is disrupted by her very presence. He realized her ability can completely erase other skills, a power that can destroy even divine blessings. Tigris is not sure who she really is, connecting rumors about the cursed girl from the royal capital. He looks at the floor. His face is drawn with anxiety. Her silence hints at a painful, hidden truth. Flashes of rejection surface again. She remembers being called cursed, but the memories are distant and shattered into pieces. Altera explains, the gloves suppress her power as soon as she takes them off. A destructive wave sweeps through her whole body. Everyone around falls silent and listens attentively. Nigris understands. These gloves are a seal that prevents disaster from reaching the people nearby. Nigris feels something interfering in her body. Even with the gloves, her destructive skill does not subside. He wonders if healing magic can dampen her ability, but he is not sure what the consequences will be. Taking a risk, Nigris casts a healing spell on his own evaluation skill, hoping it will work. After healing, his ability to evaluate works again on others, and the effect of destruction seems to be temporarily neutralized for now. He asks to examine her sealed hand, and Altera pauses significantly, yet slowly lifts the glove. Altera's hand turned gray and cracked, and this change rapidly spread, frightening even experienced healers.
The moment is interrupted by a voice from the communication device. Karen appears on the screen with
She did not need words to feel sorrow. She openly confessed her fear, and Nigris's solitude promised to heal what others feared to touch. Nigris smiled confidently. His gaze reflected past deeds that made Altera believe in his strength again. He remembered how in the old party he was rejected, ignored, underestimated, and left completely alone each time. Hearing her loneliness, Nigris gently took her hands, resolutely determined to completely lift the curse. A soft glow spread as the healing magic rose, gentle, focused, filled with quiet power. The companion warned him. This ailment had not yielded to any known treatments throughout recorded magical history. Colors slowly returned to her fingers, and Altera could not believe, looking at the trembling hands they were gradually healing. He stopped the curse of spread, but the true nature of the origin skill remained unknown. Altera, who had previously been shy, showed her hands, surprised that someone called them beautiful without hesitation. A glance at these hands instantly pushed her into memories of her sister, once her touch warmed and gave comfort. Although there was progress, he stubbornly adhered to caution. Gloves would protect others, and she was not allowed to wander alone.
She seemed truly moved by his confession. He told her how kind she was and declared that she was the most important person in the world.
Through the window, a dragon suddenly roared to everyone's surprise. It protected Altera from danger. Quietly but decisively, Altera nodded, ready to face the dragon she once feared. She stepped forward nervously, her voice trembling, but she still managed to thank the dragon for its protection. Instead, the dragon did not roar, it gently licked her hands, and she, laughing in surprise, forgot everything for a moment. Laughter melted into warmth. She smiled brightly and quietly whispered a sincere thank you to the beast that cared. Standing behind, Nigris realized, this girl, who once feared causing others pain, now felt completely normal. Aisha was rushing along the path. Panic blazed on her face. She was carrying urgent news that alarmed everyone present. She announced that the commander of the Order of Knights was heading straight into a defenseless poor district. She rushed through the majestic hall, calling Altera, her heart pounding with growing fear. Knowing Altera's unpredictability, she feared the worst even without her presence. Ons were condemned for their destructive power, and Altera lived under the watchful eye of a guardian appointed by the Holy Sword. If Altera lost control, her overseer swore to end her, without hesitation, without mercy. Guilt deeply impressed her. Leaving Altera alone, she risked bringing tragedy upon innocent lives. The appearance of a man in a mask reignites Florence's suspicions. His presence once again confirms her worst fears. Without hesitation, she enters the very slums, certain that Altera fled there seeking refuge or a way to escape. In the slums, Florence was met with resistance, but she resolutely and urgently declared Altera's presence in a commanding voice. Her demand was rejected, determination hardened. If diplomacy fails, she is ready to break through by force.
But the seal proved insufficient. With an ugly crunch, the dragon's huge jaws snapped shut and the magical restraint shattered completely. At the fracture site,
Altera nervously lifted her head, tension hung in the air, and unfamiliar voices buzzed around her. She stepped forward with a relieved smile, finally spotting her long-lost sister in the crowd. Grateful that Altera was safe, Florence gently but insistently demanded that she return home despite the contemptuous words of others. Turning to the man beside Altera, Florence sharply demanded answers. She did not know his intentions or his role. Confused by the sudden connection, she froze mid-thought, frightened by what she did not expect. Florence recoiled, shocked. Altera shrank away from her in horror. Her own sister did not recognize her. The crowd whispered in surprise, tightening the circle and piecing together the puzzle. Florence turned out to be Altera's older sister. The explanation was simple. Altera had probably lost her memory, erasing everything except instincts and magic, although she retained her name and powers, but all her personal connections had melted into a blurred spot of oblivion. Florence clenched her trembling fist, unable to accept the harsh truth. Altera remembered nothing. Tigris introduced himself as an adventurer from the slums. Florence thanked him and cautiously asked who he was. Although Florence held a title, Nigris did not release Altair without proof of their connection or trust. To test his own strength, Nigris used the assessment, raised his sacred sword, and immense power instantly stunned him. Her stats revealed incredible skill, a terrifying level of dedication, and a title feared even by seasoned warriors. Grateful, Nigras firmly insisted that Altera's fear was more important than anything. He challenged Florence's authority and reduced her to a mere church duty. Altera hesitated, perplexed by this confrontation. Her gaze begged someone to simply ask her. She shouted in protest, clinging to Nigras, rejecting Florence's pleas and demanding to stay. The group froze in stunned silence, and Nigras did not take his eyes off Florence, waiting for her response. Trying to reach her, Nigras explained that Florence's gaze was not hostile, it burned with sincere family care. Irritated by the refusal, Florence sharply raised her voice, but Niagara calmly insisted. Force would only deepen Altera's fear. Altera stubbornly defended Nigras, insisting that his kindness weighed more than brute strength or noble status. Showing her healed hands, she enthusiastically praised Nigras's skill, and Florence's face suddenly became alarmed. Stretching both hands forward, Altera invited Florence to see for herself what kindness looks like, with joy. With a joyful smile, Altera thanked once again Nigras's healing had reached even her wounded hands. Although Florence doubted, she still could not hide her surprise. She never expected that an adventurer from the slums would reveal such impressive magic. Everyone enthusiastically praised Nigras, proudly listing his strengths until their admiration overwhelmed the embarrassed healer. Florence silently watched his actions and suddenly realized his healing was not selfish, it grew from pure kindness. When he was accused of being the Lord of Darkness, Nigras protested vehemently and insisted that this title was never chosen by himself. Decisive and serious, Florence made a decision. All doubts melted away, and now she would act without hesitation. The sudden change of stance alarmed the group. They immediately gathered in defense and warned to protect Altera. Florence sincerely thanked Altera for the healing, but firmly confirmed her duty as the commander of the Holy Knights. Announcing that the country was in danger, she swiftly drew her sword from its sheath and declared, "The forces of the underworld now threaten the country's balance." She explained the council's decision to capture the Lord of Darkness. The strongest in the underworld is Nigar. Tigris objected, but Florence's sharp, faith-backed premonition was necessary. It was meant to protect ordinary people from danger. When the sacred sword ignited, everyone froze. They understood that Florence truly decided to fulfill the mission. The group confirmed the sword's origin. It is one of the 7 sacred blades used by the church.
Watched as Kylan tore away with incredible speed a white trail and flame. White Tiger and Eurabelos noted his agility and strength.
With one sharp movement, she surged forward and unleashed a powerful strike that rolled across the battlefield. Nigras reacted instantly and began casting healing magic, sensing that injuries would soon appear. The clash with Ophir exploded. Florence attacked relentlessly, while the rest fussed, trying to withstand the onslaught of unstoppable sacred power. Florence unleashed a wide energy strike, and the opponent sharply dodged under immense pressure and incredible force. Nigras healed tirelessly, but suddenly realized the stunning power of Florence still controls the course of the battle. Fearlessly rushing forward, another fighter intercepted Florence's attack, clashing swords to disrupt her momentum and protect Nigras. Without hesitation, Florence responded with destructive power, unleashing her powerful finishing move Thunder Train. The explosion thundered over the field, and everyone scattered, but under oppressive tension, they regrouped again. Florence stood unshakably, and her attack swept away the enemy, dissolving a devastating wave of power within him. Although Nigra used healing magic, he barely withstood the support of allies under the relentless pressure of the battlefield. Suddenly, another girl burst into the clash. Her sword clashed with Florence's sword and disrupted the rhythm of the fight. Florence warned them of danger, summoned the Thunder Train, and immediately launched a magical counterattack. When the deafening explosion subsided, Florence strode toward the stunned opponents, ready for the next confrontation. Niglas casts a multi-layered healing spell, knowing he will be consumed to charge the Holy Sword. The Holy Sword absorbs all the magic around, gathering colossal power in its heart and above it. She raises the charged blade high, shouts "Dike Glory," and instantly releases all the accumulated energy. A blinding explosion bursts outward, forcing the entire team to take cover from the devastating holy wave. The fierce knight unleashed her finishing move, Arendai Glory, aiming directly at the enemy's barrier. The strike exploded across the battlefield, and Nigras instinctively raised the barrier, shielding allies from the powerful blasts. While others ducked, he instantly calculated the explosion's trajectory and realized fleeing would doom everyone inside the structure. Pushing beyond his limits, Nigras layered the barrier, despite his body already beginning to fail. The knight suddenly halted its advance, and Nigra froze, not understanding why the attack abruptly stopped. She demanded an answer. He calmly explained, "The town's safety weighs more than anyone's own life." Without hesitation, he accepted the risk. His sole goal is to protect those who trust him. Her face softened, but caution in her eyes did not disappear. She acknowledged that his intentions would not upset the balance between powerful forces. Florence sought clarity, and as soon as she heard Nigris's resolve, she and her allies promised cooperation without any hesitation. With respect, she apologized for testing him. Altera's fate now depended on a single condition. The frenzied destructive power of Altair once threatened the kingdom, and to secure it, an order was issued to execute Altair. To prevent disaster, the kingdom placed Altera under strict surveillance, considering her a potential threat. She was not trusted, but Altera lived peacefully in the wilderness. Her powers weakened, and the smile returned once again. Florence felt the fear had not yet disappeared, but Nigris achieved what she never could, making Altair happy. From his perspective, Nigris saw not only duty, he felt something more. Despite all burdens, Florence remained a caring sister. Florence entrusted Nigris with the care of Altair, hoping he would protect him until the memories returned. The old warrior revealed the task, to restore Altair's memory from the decisive hiding place. With firm determination, Nigris took responsibility. Florence officially handed over Altair's safety to him. While Altura silently watched, Florence left alone. Their paths diverged, and unspoken, unresolved feelings hung between them. Elsewhere, an observer in a cloak carefully studied Nigris's magic and realized its logic was so unusual it could rival even the ancient primal forces. The lad secretly wove spy magic into Altura's heart and used it to monitor Nigris's abilities. He deliberately pulled the strings of events, even twisted memories, because he expected Nigris to intervene and heal those who suffered. The spell allowed him to know about Jean's and others' movements, and to do so unnoticed. Florence rushed into the room, interrupting Elad's quiet moment. Suspicion and silent accusation blazed in her eyes. Without hesitation, she lunged forward and struck him in the face, and directly accused Alad of having orchestrated Altair's suffering from the very beginning. Alad mocked Florence's emotions, praised Nigris's strength, and behind a mask of polite praise hid his insidious schemes. Despite the sword aimed at him, he did not waver and quietly admitted, "Nigris is truly trustworthy." Without fear, Alad showed the document. Florence doubted its meaning and felt the manipulations were starting again. In the paper, false accusations. Alad intended to frame Altair and inform the Holy Church. Enraged, Florence sharply fired back, accusing Alad of using Altura as a pawn for political gain. Alad hinted at a sinister plan, calling the existence of Altura part of some interesting larger purpose. He loomed over Florence with two harsh options: kill Altara or betray the church and lose everything. Florence silently doubted his ultimatum. Her gaze sharpened. She would not let either option decide for her. She realized resistance alone might not hold. Even from Nigris, the Holy Church had an irresistible power. Calmly but boldly, she rejected both paths and challenged the system itself. Determined, Florence raised her sword and declared that Altura's happiness was more important to her than the demands of the Holy Church. Alad activated several magical seals. The room immediately flared with barriers, and he was already preparing for a counterattack. She understood Alad's magic caused Altura to lose his memory, and only by defeating him could the spell be lifted. Unforgivable deeds ignited a fire of determination in her. She rushed forward and vowed to restore Altura's stolen memories. Magic exploded fiercely, and Florence cut through the waves of spells, unwaveringly advancing toward the boy. Florence unleashed her most powerful move, Erendite Glory, to completely break through Alad's magical defense. Alad smiled calmly and responded with another multi-layered barrier. Spell. His confidence was unshaken under pressure. The magical seals instantly flared, explosively absorbing the sacred sword's strike and deploying layers of resistance. Both fighters stood tense. A powerful explosion thundered, shocking Florence as the boy redirected her attack. The wave of the strike tore through the building. Magical power burst outward, devouring both walls and windows. Alad stood amid the ruins, smiling and mocking Florence. She noticed his well-prepared countermagic. Although the holy sword had power, Florence's strike failed. She fell, stunned by his spells. Bruised and breathless, she struggled, trying to get up. Her strength was fading, and the boy looked on without pity. Instead of finishing her off, Alad took pity on Florence and said she was connected to Altura, yet she was still a tool of his manipulations. Somewhere far away, another figure from Udalad's forged report silently prepared for what was about to happen. In the silence, a solitary figure studied Alad's document, analyzing every word in the moonlight shadows. Returning to the guild, they chose the nearest quest, leaving Altura's protection to others. After rescuing Altura, she quietly stayed close to the group, gradually getting used to life in the slums. Finding no threat in Altura, they left her under supervision and went to select a mission. Before they could finalize their plans, the receptionist suddenly approached them with paper in hand, noticeably anxious. The registrar with cat ears assigned them a task. It was urgent. Refusal was not an option, so they had to take it and act. An urgent call came in. Destroy a creature of rank, says a hydra that had just awakened and was raging in the forest. The team swallows the sudden appointment with distrust and finds out the new guild leader harbors a grudge. The gap between pride and politics, the leader hesitates, but knows preserving a good name is vital. Encouraged by the support of allies, he learns the guild master can respect strength and forgive. Accepting the challenge, he realizes this mission can expose even the secrets of the great noble Alad. Their journey began as soon as thunder rumbled like a farewell and a sign of the upcoming battle. Alice released magic, striking the beast with a shock, and her confidence was drowned out by the very impact. The team noticed that she handled the situation better, warmly praised her progress, and smiling, moved on toward the goal. Reaching the edge of the forest, they exchanged glances and discussed the troubling oddity. The hydra appeared too close to the outer boundary. Despite thorough searches, no trace was found, and Negris pondered, maybe the hydra is deeper inside. Suddenly, a distant scream echoed from the depths of the forest, and the team instantly turned their gaze to the northern path. When they arrived, a huge multi-headed hydra was revealed, and it became clear how dangerous this mission was. The nearest adventurers had already been defeated by the hydra. It overcame them before help could arrive. Without hesitation, Negris ordered Alyssa and Fels to engage in battle, while he himself kept a vigilant guard over the safety of others. Alyssa dashed with thunder magic and struck the hydra even before its black flames could reach them.
When they descend back to the ground, Klaus turns to Sakura and praises her, calling her sword dance beautiful. Embarrassed, Sakura blushes and denies.
Despite the watery fury, the team worked as owner, restraining its numerous heads and deadly blows. Weakened and stunned, the hydra collapsed. Nearby, adventurers praised the team's strength with admiration and relief. Mission accomplished. The group escorted the survivors and decided to return to report. Guild receptionist confirmed the find. The thing was indeed from a genuine S-rank hydra. When Negris returned, curiosity about the new guildmaster unsettled his mind with uncertainty. The team was introduced to Wealth, first woman guild leader in history. She radiated power and mystery. Negris activated the skill assessment, checked Well's status, and saw power stunning loyalty none. Silently behind him, Vel approached, catching him in the middle of scanning, and calmly warned him not to read without permission. She instantly recognized Negris's signature, moving by this confirmed the hydra's defeat, subtly implying that she had already grasped everything. Before leaving, Vel approached the Niagara team and asked to speak privately about what had happened. She had just sternly informed the promoted group. Due to their reckless decisions, they were temporarily demoted. Vel admitted that he participated in rescuing the Negris group, but doubted their decisions at the most critical moments.
Memories fade and silence covers the group. The conversation has already passed over the fact that the government has not changed, and that appeals were made to.
After dismissing the demoted group, Vel returned to Negris and officially requested a private conversation. In Negris's office, he asked Vel indignantly why she punished the adventurers even though they tried so hard. Vel prioritized survival over ambition and harshly eliminated unprepared adventurers who ignored the risks of higher-rank missions. Unlike her predecessor, who valued only results, Vel judged people by their judgment, growth, and compatibility. She revealed the truth. Hydra Mija had a dual purpose to test and evaluate Negris. Vel said that his success proved what he was capable of, and this mission was a fully sufficient reason for an official promotion. Even when Negris was promoted, he immediately changed the subject and began asking about the mysterious second purpose of the mission. He came across a sealed message about the execution of Altera due to her dangerous ability of primal destruction. Although they kept it secret, Vel blurted out, the order for execution came directly from the Holy Church. Vel encouraged calm, assuring them that she had a plan, and showed her hidden solution. A hidden magic circle opened. Alice recognized it a moment ago, super powerful and possibly forbidden. Vel recognized the magic circle of Azel and linked it to the hidden past of Niggers. Niggers decisively rejected that hint, saying he might have a connection with darkness or forbidden forces like Azel. Stunned by his power, Vel asked for help to challenge the three mighty forces. Vel loudly confessed, her goal is to overthrow Alad, that powerful nobleman who stands behind all these injustices. Hearing her plan, Niggers and his comrades shuddered with surprise. They did not know what Vel really wanted. Niggers hesitated whether Vel could be trusted, although her proposal sounded reasonable. Vel warned that there was almost no time left. Any delay would cost countless innocent lives. Elsewhere, a man in the shadows revealed plans to regain his true body and rise again. A mysterious sword with a sealed magic circle inside hinted at the return of something destructive. On the eve of the crisis, it became clear twin dragons are monsters that only grow stronger over time. A mysterious figure offered a way home, but one must tame a forbidden power. Nigers suddenly realized that he perceives Altera both as a threat and as a possible tool for manipulation. Vel, doubting Nigris's biography, persistently demanded to reveal his true identity and intentions. Confidently smiling, Vel declared that she is one of the legendary Western sages of the kingdom. The Adventurers Guild has 4 sages, powerful, mysterious leaders, considered its strongest trump cards. The group learns that even the Western sage is ready to stand against the dangerous hidden conspiracies of Alad. Everyone fell silent, listening as Vel named Alad's true goal, an unknown place hidden in the thickets. This place turned out to be a secret library, hidden deep in the thickets. In that forgotten library rests an ancient magical emblem. It can unleash catastrophic destructive power. 7 powerful emblems shine on the sacred swords, but this 8th remains untouched, buried in darkness. Nigris finally understood. What the boy was searching for is far more dangerous than the wild rampage of the mad black dragon. Well insisted, the highest priority of the mission is to urgently retrieve the pure crest before Elid does. The group silently acknowledged the threat, each prepared for the dangerous road ahead. Meanwhile, Elid pushed his plan, hoping that Puricrest would soon return his body. In his fortress, he activated a mysterious weapon, and its connection to an ancient power suddenly made itself known.
Shaking all over.
The group silently acknowledged the threat, each prepared for this. Despite doubts, the guild leader stubbornly insisted, only Nigris has the traits needed for this mission. Confused by her trust, Nigris doubted himself, but she believed in healing it lived in his heart. She explained that the magic of the crest is ancient and pure, and modern forgeries lack its true secret foundation. The scouts suddenly burst in panic. Something terrible happened that could ruin their plan and the crest. Urgent news arrived. The leader of the B-rank squad suffered a serious, unexpected injury. The crowd closed in as the wounded adventurer told. A girl attacked him in a dark alley. Examining his hand, Nigers realized the tendon was almost severed, a terrible injury for any warrior. He swiftly applied healing magic, stabilized the hand, and prevented the injury from becoming incurable. Beneath their feet, a hidden magical sign activated without warning. It was awakened by the secret spell of the wounded adventurer. Nigris tried to neutralize the activated crest, but the protective magic forced him to freeze instantly. He cast healing spells, but the wound stubbornly resisted the magic nearby. His stunned companions raised the alarm. It was confirmed. The crest was forged. Perhaps it was just bait crafted by some guy. The structure of the crest was deliberately created to neutralize Nigris's abilities and suppress his overpowering healing magic. Suspicions grew. Everything became clearer. Altera's unstable power could harm not only the enemy. Mysterious woman silently approached, and everyone froze. They did not know if she was an ally or an enemy, or both at once. She reached out to the active magical crest and studied its structure with practical precision. The guildmaster entered, performing complex gestures, and everyone else froze in stunned admiration. The light flickered as she carefully adjusted the internal pattern of the crest and initiated a quiet magical rewriting ritual. Despite difficulties, she explained that the spell seal could be partially removed to restore Nigris's magic. When the seal weakened, Nigris again rushed into healing magic, hoping that his power had finally fully returned. Relief quickly spread. The wounded traveler recovered, exclaiming joyfully because the pain completely disappeared from his body while others praised the elder's brilliance, admiration for Nigris and his reliable magic only grew. During a private interrogation, he was given a warning. Careless abuse could cause failure and endanger his entire team. Determined to become better, Nigra quietly promised to strengthen himself and no longer put his ally in danger. During the battle, Jean's holy sword almost nullified Nigris's healing, as it just revealed the danger hidden by the crest. Pure Crest of Yumiv could copy and neutralize any magical seal, simultaneously accumulating colossal arcane energy within itself. Realizing the danger, Nigris shouted, they must get the Pure Crest before Alad manages to do so. They set off to Florence to find Vela, the Sage of the West, whom he himself did not know exactly where to find that library. In a luxurious hall, they were greeted by an elegant woman she knew about Nigris and welcomed him with a playful smile. Nigris seized the moment and urgently rushed first to the library, fearing that Alad would take the magical crest. Since he arrived, Alad's magic relentlessly suppressed Nigris's healing, giving him an advantage if not stopped. Their confusion grew. Alad targeted them for no reason, because even the mere presence of Nigris could touch his ambitions. They realized the release of the Black Dragon was just a distraction, a trick to sneak into the hidden library, too. To watch them, Alad sent Altera. Now she was intrigued by their strength and broken hopes. Nigra suspected that Alad used Altera's mission to study and find a way to counter his rare healing magic. The team understood. Jane disappeared because Altera was used to ignite a conflict with the church. Everyone condemned Alad's plan to use a child as a pawn to deal with his religious enemies. Florence warned about the dangers of this library and honestly admitted only she could reveal its hidden location. She pulled out a detailed map from the drawer intending to lead them to the library. They stared at the old map, drawn before the appearance of the slums. It marked the origin of the library. Florence confirmed the library stands in a village devastated by monsters, where people once lived until it was destroyed. Feeling a duty to the slums, Florence decided to become their companion and guide, showing the way. Some suggested taking Altera with them, fearing she would be in danger if left behind, but objections and anxiety immediately flared. Florence warned, Altera may still be under Alad's control if provoked. Everyone will be in danger. Despite objections, Nigres insisted that Altera learn about the growing threat and influence of Alad. He revealed the role assigned to Jean, believing it safer to protect Altera than leave her with. Resolutely, Niagara vowed to guard Altair, despite the risks they would have to face. Soon the group boldly rushed deep into the forest, making their way to that hidden library they had heard whispers about. Confusion grew. Florence could not find the building, although the map pointed exactly to this place.
And after a whole year,
Then leave her with. Resolutely, Niagara vowed to guard Altair. Everyone agreed. When Nigres was near, people gained confidence. His protection dispelled anxieties and calmed even Altura's fragile heart. Annoyed by the delays, one of them jokingly suggested simply cutting down the forest to find the hidden library. She impulsively rushed forward, believing that strength would solve everything, but a blow stopped her. Sudden pain struck everyone, and surprisingly, she hit something invisible, where it seemed there was nothing. An invisible wall blocked their way. No one could pass, and no one saw what was happening on the other side. Attempts to break it failed. Thunder magic did not work, and the forceful strike maimed everyone around. Florence found out there is a solution. The barrier can only be broken by one special skill, which only Altera possessed. Altera hesitates, but the group believes her innate power will work where others have already failed. She was gently asked to help. She hesitated about her role, but was still ready to try. The elf assured the girl with a calm, soothing voice, while the whole group stood silently behind. Though her heart pounded with nerves, the girl spoke decisively. She wanted to help, not be the one protected. Everyone held their breath and watched as she stepped forward and slowly reached out to the invisible barrier. Her touch caused a powerful reaction. A crack spread outward, and it became clear that the barrier was already beginning to break. The hidden library emerged from beneath the shattered illusions, and the whole group froze together in awe. Shock flooded their eyes as soon as the magical walls crumbled, and inside a huge hidden structure was revealed. The group stood silent before the great library, and its entrance awakened from their combined efforts.